Bows and bow ties. I am struggling. I want you guys to get a really good look at me. You see the bags? I always have bags. I am dealing with allergies. I just took my medicine, so I'm going to need about another 10 or 15 minutes before it kicks in. So, look, let me go ahead and just put the title up here. Um, oh, I didn't even put the title up. I didn't even put it in, Lord Jesus. So, what did I call this? Lord, okay. The title of this is called Black Excellence, Black Athletes, Black Kanye, and R. Kelly. Um, I was talking to a couple buddies of mine. One of my favorite people, CBR Kid. He should be able to join shortly. Hoping he can join in here. And then I was talking briefly with an old buddy of mine, Disha Bass. I'm not sure he's going to be able to join tonight. But anyway, I was having a conversation about those types of things. For those of you who are new to my channel, I am the Black Opinionated Woman, also known as a B.O.W. I have to apologize for all my sniffles and all that good stuff. I mean, the bags and everything. I'm on a struggle bus. Yeah, so yeah, the Black Opinionated Woman, also known as a B.O.W. I haven't done a panel in a while, and at the very last second, I was like, "Hey, you think you might want to come on?" So, I'm not sure how convenient it's going to be for a couple of my buddies to get on. So they may or may not come in, but if they come in, we'll have a chit chat. So, yeah, let me see. Let me put my ticker up because I don't need any drama because I know how people can get sometimes and lose their mind. So, look. As I've said in many of my videos, this is all alleged. Okay. Everything is alleged. It's just my opinions or maybe the opinions of my guests. All statements are alleged until proven to be true or untrue or whatever it is. Okay. So it's not a big deal. Sorry, I'm just waiting for it to kick in. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about Black excellence for a second. Oh, I see CBR Kid trying to come in. Let me add you to the stream, CBR Kid. Hey, what's up, homie?
¿Qué pasa?
It's
¿Cómo
been
está
a
usted?
minute. I know we haven't done one in a long time. We talk about it. It seems like every other week, and then we never get it together.
I
So,
know.
for those of you who don't know, CBR Kid is a good buddy of mine. We know each other from work. We're now on two separate contracts, so we don't see each other as often, but we communicate via chat every day.
Pretty much.
Yes, he's a good buddy of mine. So yeah, I was just introducing the topic, and I have to apologize. Oh, sorry, because I just took my allergy medicine. You and I deal with the same thing, so I'm waiting for
Oh,
it to
yeah.
kick in.
I take mine every morning.
Yeah, I know. I took some this morning, but I needed a little bit of a boost tonight because I was on a struggle bus. So yeah, basically what I said was I introduced the topic of Black excellence, Black athletes, or basically the exploitation of Black athletes, Black Kanye, and then I said dot R. Kelly. So what I wanted
Gotcha.
to do was talk about I put some notes on here. This is what I typed in. I didn't type the title, but this is what I put in. This is what I looked up Black excellence. This was like the best definition I could find. It basically says portraying great qualities that make the community proud. All
Okay.
right. So let
Fair
me take
enough.
this other ticker off for a second. So that's what it says. Um, portraying great. I can't even talk. Portraying great qualities that make the community proud. All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna take that off. Do you want me to take our names off? Do we need our names up there? I'll leave them up there for a while. Anyway,
Sure. Why not?
so when I was thinking about that, I was like, well, what do we as Black Americans now? I'm not trying to cause division. Okay, before I get into saying the whole Black American thing, but you know how this is, right? Because I feel like when we're dealing with people who are a part of the displaced diaspora and from the continent, they don't ever just say, hey, they're Black. They say, oh, no, I'm Jamaican, or no, Nigerian, or no, I'm this, right? So, although I would say those from the Caribbean, we have some good relationships with, but oftentimes when we're talking about Blackness, I think people from the continent, especially, when I say the continent, I'm talking the continent of Africa,
Yeah,
they
we
like
know.
to separate themselves from us.
Yes,
So,
they do.
huh?
I say yes, they do.
Yeah, they don't consider themselves part of us, even though everyone sees them as the blackity blacks too. As much as they want to separate themselves from us, they think they're better. So, although, and I say this a little tongue in cheek too, because of course, I have other relationships with people who are from the continent, but you know, sometimes they say some things that are reckless, and we've been guilty. Black Americans have been guilty of saying some reckless things too. But anyway, I digress. So when I talk about Black excellence, I'm talking about Black American
Mhm.
excellence. Those
Sure.
who have some sort of lineage or tie to, slavery or enslaved peoples.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, when I look at the definition before I get into other things, it says portraying great qualities that make the community proud. I'm like,
Mhm.
so what are we what are we doing that's making our community proud, right? Um, in the past, we had the civil rights era. So we had people when they would get on any sort of, if they would perform any sort of extemporaneous speaking or whatever it was, they were coming from a place of intellectualism,
Okay.
right? So, whether we agreed with the Malcolm versus Martin approach or whatever, and there's other great people,
The
during
ideology.
that era, um, they were coming from a different kind of space. Back then, we valued that level intellectualism. We valued consciousness. We valued femininity. We valued masculinity in as far as back in the 60s. What has been co-opted today, that's another discussion for another day, right? We
Mhm.
valued, I believe we valued family. We valued, I think, obtaining education at the time because it appeared to be out of reach for us. So our
Yes.
HBCUs, I believe, now I wasn't born in the 60s, I didn't live in the 60s, but I believed were held in high esteem. On and on and on. Until this day, many of our doctors and lawyers, no, let me rephrase that. Our doctors and dentists come from HBCUs, right? I'm not sure where our lawyers come from, but like the institution, Howard University, is known for pushing out many of our doctors and lawyers. When you think about our engineers, you think of Morgan State, you think of North Carolina A&T. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
FAMU. Yeah.
Did I miss something or
No, I was saying FAMU is another one. Yeah.
FAMU? See, I didn't
Mhm.
know. Were they known for engineering?
I know quite a few engineers from FAMU that are pretty good.
I mean, granted, I think about more like in our area because we're in a
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but
Sure.
when you think about um, and that just rattled off the top of my head, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
when you think of now, I had to throw in North Carolina and T, even though I didn't go there, but that was just one black school that I applied to that I wanted to go to. So when I think,
A&T churns them out. So
yeah, so when I think about black excellence, we had, in my opinion, it's not based on fact, based off of my perception. It
sure.
was, we valued those things. We valued when people took pride in how they dressed. So when I think about going back to before I let you in on the conversation, when I think about what the topic is portraying great qualities that make the community proud. I'm like, what are we proud of? And I look down, which is why I thought of like, you and I were talking earlier about black athletes and that type of thing. I'm like, we're proud of our athletes. We're proud of our, I would say, physical aesthetics.
Mhm.
We are proud of our ability to entertain. When I say entertain, I kind of feel like we're like the modern day step and fetch. I mean, like we're proud of those things. We've gotten so far away from anything that was intellectual and family based, community based.
And I don't know that we've gotten away from it. It's just not out. It's just not out there in the forefront. Like, I mean, obviously the one standout in that world will be Obama, right? Goes to Harvard, ascends to the presidency, so on and so forth. But what happened in the community, when he was elected the first time, I mean, Black America went crazy. Everybody was celebrating the first Black president. Black man finally gets to be president, so on and so forth. And then when maybe some of us might not agree with his policies or whatever the case may be, then we start to tear him down. I'm like, no, he's still Black man, show family man, show that hey, I can hold this hardest job in the world down for 8 years with no scandal. When they come at me all crazy, I maintain my composure. I'm an excellent orator. All of that stuff that we just talked about, the family man, the educated man, the masculinity, the loving your wife, all of that stuff, loving you, all of that stuff. Forget whether you agree with him as a politician, but in this context of black excellence, he did it. And even within our own community, some people still tore him down. So the question is, what does the community value?
So it's interesting. I was this close to putting Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, on the thumbnail,
On the thumbnail.
but I was going to bring it up in conversation, just to inject life into the conversation. Like, well, what do you think
Mhm.
about Obama? So, like, I didn't agree with all his policies, but I wasn't. I viewed Barack Obama as a politician.
Mhm.
Um, like I said, there were some things that I wasn't a fan of, but
Right.
I would still, regardless of whether, like you say, you agree with his politics, I would consider him to be black excellence. But then what happens is when people stopped agreeing with his politics or they didn't agree with his politics, then his blackness was questioned.
But why should it be? Because
I'm with you.
yeah,
Like
I understand, John. Yeah,
people pick and choose
but
when
that's what I
people
mean.
are biracial when they want to call them black.
Yeah,
So I'm like, which one is it?
but let you not have a famous face look like him and get pulled over by the police in the middle of Mississippi. See what happens to you. You're
Mm,
gonna find out. You're gonna find out where you stand. But
yeah,
again, you can't. So I think we're guilty of that. Not us personally, but us as a community. If we don't agree with the person's ideologies or policies or whatever, and that not had to be a politician, it could be anybody, then we challenge their blackness. But I'm like, one has nothing to do with the other.
you're right. We'll challenge blackness. We'll challenge sexuality.
Right.
Right. We will challenge. I don't know. I had a point and then I forgot. That's that age kicking in. But you're
Yes.
right. Like we'll challenge, and I was thinking like, okay, should I put him on a thumbnail or should I save it for conversation? Because I think he still represents black excellence, right? He attended prestigious universities, and you know me, I like to be a little shady. But he went to Harvard University. I mean, and I'm like, is that the real HU? Is it Harvard? Is it Princeton? Is it Howard? you know
Yeah.
but I feel like regardless of his politics or politics depending on who he
Yeah.
talks
Yeah.
regardless of his policies, he still, I would say, represents black excellence.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's not enough because now they're like, nope, everybody says we need to stop calling biracials black. I go either way with it. I mean, I feel like this. If you're biracial and
I
you
mean,
don't identify as
you,
black, then I say, okay, you're not black.
I mean, because then you start getting into the one drop rule and
Right.
all that stuff.
But if people
But
don't identify as black, I'm like, we're in
I,
this identity
I
era.
mean, there's no it's no in between for me. I'm like, if I look at you and you look, man, yeah, you look like a black guy. I don't know, your mother was white or your father was white. Look at you, you look like a black guy to me. I mean, I got my
I have to
nephew.
apologize.
If
I'm
you,
sorry. I'm
yeah,
smelling this thing on my shirt. I accidentally was leaning over and it dipped in some
uh
hot
oh,
wax. It was hot wax.
oh,
So it's hard, but it smells so good. And I'm trying to get the wax off. So it smells so good.
yeah.
Sorry, I
But
digress.
no, but I mean, the whole biracial thing, I can't. You know, I got a nephew. His mother's a blackity black, and his dad is a white guy. But if you see him, you wouldn't know that. If the police pull him over, I mean, he got a big old afro, the whole. I mean, and for all of the landscape of this world, he's a black man. Although he's biracial in the landscape of this world, he's a black man.
I, I
Period.
I
You
have
know.
to. I would say yeah, but like I said, what happens is in our community when we talk about black excellence, like I said in the past or earlier, we in the past we considered black excellence were people like in the civil rights era. We said
Mm,
that we valued the intellectualism, we valued education because it was kind of like out of our reaches,
mm,
our reach. We valued our HBCUs, we valued the ability to dress. We
Mhm.
valued femininity. We valued masculinity. And now today, our value is in our sports figures. It's in our physical aesthetic. And I keep saying physical aesthetic because I think of terms of like men and women, what we look like today, what the women look like
Mhm.
today. There's this overemphasis. We value our entertainers.
But
So when I,
I mean, we always have though. That's it's not. But I think in the past we celebrated both equally. Obviously, I wasn't there in the '60s, the '50s, the '40s. I wasn't there, but they would, they were celebrated equally to me. When Jackie Robinson broke into Major League Baseball, that was a big deal back. That was a big deal at the time, and
but
he was celebrated then to now.
if you talk to staunch, I hate calling people hotaps, right? Staunch pro-blackers or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it, they'll say like, "But was that really something to be celebrated? Why can't we celebrate the fact that he set these records in the Negro leagues or whatever it was, right? They don't consider that something to be
Be,
celebrated."
because
You
at the
know what I'm saying?
time,
It's like a
well,
slippery slope.
but yeah, I mean, and I would say to them, because at the time you have to understand, they were telling us you're less than. You can't compete with the white guy. You don't belong with these guys. And then he breaks in and of course shows absolutely I'm as good as these guys. Absolutely I could compete with these guys. I'm smart enough to be on the same field with these guys. It's kind of the I mean, you know me, I've been involved in football my whole life. It's kind of the whole black quarterback thing. For the longest time, black players weren't considered smart enough to play that position. Well, obviously that's not true, right? But it's kind of the same thing to me. Once upon a time, black players weren't allowed in the NBA. You have no business playing with white players. I think it was more of that than you know not than rather than not celebrating the Black Fives or the Negro leagues, or I don't even know if there was an all black football league. Not none that I know of. But I think it was more the fact that you're telling us we're not intellectually qualified to compete with our white counterparts when nothing could have been further from the truth.
Yeah, so I have up here a troll here who has put in several comments. I'm just going to put this one up
That's
here. Cynthia G and our Ethiopian minister, even Eritrean president, is right. FBA, first of all, it's kind of laughable because I have somebody he wants to troll, but the actual grammar in itself is lacking. But anyway,
yeah,
Cynthia G should be capitalized, and our Ethiopian minister, Ethiopian, should be capitalized, comma, even Eritrean president, so Eritrean or Eritrean should be capitalized, is right, comma, that's what should be there. FBA males,
should be
foundational
are
black males, foundational black American males is should be are lazy,
subject verb
period.
agreement, buddy.
I know. It should be capital A, never fought for lands in their own currency, period. Capital E and Eritreans fought Ethiopia for the women. Now, first of all, we know this is clearly a troll, but I find it to be entertaining because we know that when people who are calling or who like to chime in from the continent, it's laughable because I believe most of the people who are brown, they don't even own their land. So we'll start with that.
I
So
would
if
say,
they
who
don't,
is this dude and what do you qualify?
oh, there's a lot of comments that he's putting in here. It's laughable. There's so many ways of attacking these little arguments that this person has in here, but I'm just letting this person get it all out because
Oh, I
people,
see.
it is what it is. My thing is when I can disagree with a group of people without having to be disagreeable, but I just wanted this person to get their couple minutes of fame. And while this person has also put another comment in here, why are you talking about my grammar and some other things? He said grandma versus grammar. This is clearly a troll. I just like to I'm just kind of like getting my hee-haws at this person's expense because instead of providing solutions, this person wants to spend time trolling. But anyway, let's get back onto the main topic.
Worry about your unmarried rate. Okay.
It's
That I think that rate is 50% across all of Americans.
don't
So
even get me started. I'm just sitting there thinking like when you go to the continent, I'm like, first of all, there's so many problems that need to be fixed on the continent. There's so many problems, but it's not worth me engaging. So, but what I'll do is I'll go ahead and block this user now. So now this person's blocked, and I got rid of all of it because it was nonsensical.
Yeah, I read it. I thought it was funny.
It
You know,
was
just
funny. I
seeing
was like,
things.
the person is silly. It is clear it was a troll, but I found some entertainment in it. Now let's move on. So getting back to talking about Black excellence. When you're dealing with Black excellence, I think about things like in our sports figures, we value like the Serena. I wrote down we value LeBron because when you think about these kind of figures, they have done things in the community. I think they've invested in like tennis courts. Like I've played, I used to play tennis. I would go
Sure.
down towards DC all the time and play on some of the tennis courts that they, whatever. They,
Mhm.
LeBron James, I think he has a school or academy or something.
Yeah,
You've got,
he does. And I'm back in Akron.
yeah. So, and that's just off of the top of my head. You've got some who engage in shenanigans too, but,
Yeah, what's interesting is you have both, but we tend to focus more on the shenanigans and less on the positive. And I know with some people they like, they'd rather do the positive without the attention or accolades.
mhm,
I have read where different, you know, professional athletes, even high profile people that aren't athletes, like, look, I'll do this, but I don't want any publicity. When I think that's where the publicity should be. It's great that you can run fast, jump high, catch a ball, dunk a ball, so on and so forth. I never played pro ball, but I used to be able to do all those things. But it's more impressive to me when when you do all of that stuff off the court. I mean, you mentioned LeBron and like what he's done is unprecedented because of the expectations set on him. The man was on the
yeah,
cover of Sports Illustrated when he was 16. It was set up for him to fail. And he's done nothing but succeed. And but not only that, but he's brought people along with him. It's like, hey, I know I'm the bell cow, but I need you guys over here to do this. I need you to go learn this so we can handle this business side, and built the business, built the school. You know, his investment portfolio was ridiculous from what I've read.
well,
And
yeah.
it seems like he's not made one misstep in an arena where it's so easy, and we've seen it time and time again to make a misstep. But again, been with the same woman since high school, basically.
Yeah.
You know, 20
And,
years they've
and
been
look, I'm
together.
sure we can find things in this past because I think
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of us are,
He's human. I mean, he's
yeah.
human.
But
But
I'm
overall,
not looking for it. I don't want.
yeah, I mean, but overall, you look at what the man's done. It's like he's done everything that you will want your athletes to do.
So that's why I'm not anti sports figures when they take their resources, their clout, their networking capabilities, their whatever, and they
Mhm.
find a way to channel that back into the
To
community.
reach back. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I can't speak for Michael Jordan. I can't speak for, well, see, Tiger Woods is not black. He made it clear. I can't speak for um Simone
To,
Biles. She's young. I'm sure
well,
she's
she's still a
doing
kid.
great things.
Yeah. She's
You know what I mean?
24 years old,
Right. So that's
23.
why I'm not.
So,
I don't have any great expectations. But then you look at somebody like, now I'm gonna bring in like a Naomi Osaka tennis star, right?
mhm,
Like I said, people pick and choose when they want to say somebody's black. Now
when they
she's
want to
that
claim
black
them.
and yeah, she's black and Japanese, but she's been fighting on behalf of Black Lives Matter. Now, look, we know Black Lives Matter. It's got some shenanigans associated with it. Okay.
Sure.
So, but nevertheless, I think she's tried to call
Fighting
attention.
on behalf of what it's supposed to be. How about that?
Right. Because what happens if things get co opted? There was the scandal and, all
Sure.
that stuff. But I think when I see, like, I don't have a problem with holding sports athletes in high regard. I just don't like when it is grossly misrepresented,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
So what I was always taught, again, I didn't play professionally, but what I was always taught through Pop Warner, high school, and college is that as an athlete, we're held to a higher standard.
Mhm.
More is expected of us as athletes, and our responsibility is to meet that standard or exceed that standard. That's what my coaches always taught us, regardless of the level of, whether it was, like I said, Pop Warner High School or college. We always taught the same, always taught that. Um, do some guys forget that and lose sight of that? Absolutely, 100%. Um,
You're right. You're
But
right.
I think if you look at that community as a whole, there are far more guys that don't lose sight of that than that do. But it's just you focus on the negative. People focus on something bad happens, they go right to it. Something good happens, they don't talk about it. Like I forget the kid's name. His first round draft pick, play for the Buffalo Bills. He's a teacher in Baltimore.
Oh,
You know,
didn't know that.
he was Aaron Maben. I think that's who it is. He's a teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools somewhere. When they were having heat issues, he made sure the kids were warm coats, whatever they needed in the classroom, so he could teach his class. It's not, it's not like it's a big thing, but I'm sure he didn't have to go be a teacher at the end of his NFL career was short, but he made some money. I'm sure he didn't have to go teach, but he did.
What I
You know,
like is when people take their connections and whether it's teaching, but then maybe they are volunteering or coaching or whatever like that, because now
sure.
I can say, hey, look, I played at the highest levels, and they can impart that wisdom, but then they can teach character and stuff. Let me just say this. This is kind of a sidebar. One of the things I like about my daughter's lacrosse team is like they're
Hmm.
trying to teach, make sure that these young ladies are people of good character.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think what sorry, I was looking at the chat. Somebody said, "Man, I'm the only one here." All right, but so
Nah, the other guy got blocked.
oh, is that the guy that got blocked? That's
No,
probably
no, he said, "Is he the only one here?" No, you're not. The other guy got blocked.
that's probably the same person. These are all bots and trolls and stuff like that. So it's probably the same person. Anyway, oh gosh, my allergies. So anyway, when I think about when you got these guys, like keep in mind, I live in an area where lacrosse is, a hotbed. And a lot of these people have played and they know all the hot shot people, blah, blah, blah. But when they give back their time, not only they giving back their time, but they're also teaching how to be good people.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to do certain things. It looked like D. Shabazz was trying to get in and he dropped out. And I don't know what's going on. He'll get it together. But anyway, so I'm going to segue for a second because we can point out the negatives of the sports figures, and I don't feel like doing that, right? But when
Sure.
I think about Black excellence, though, I just feel like we don't value intellectualism anymore. You don't see too many people like engaging in like a lot of intellectual conversation. You have a few out there, whether you agree or disagree. You've got
Okay.
like Tariq Nasheed. I don't really listen to him as much. Um I'm having a moment. You've got I see his face and I can't remember his name. Wears glasses. I think he
He
wears
was
glasses.
he who
Boys
shall not be named.
Boys Hawkins or Royce, huh? He's
No,
oh,
but I'm trolling you right now.
no, see, look, sugar hot cakes or whatever his name is deceased. He's been deceased now for a few months, Mr. Average at best. But look, um, it's either Royce or Boyce Watkins. I remember I blocked
Oh,
him.
Dr. Boyce Watkins. Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the stuff he would say was ridiculous, but at least he's trying. I
Yeah.
think where he
And
was
you can say
irritating
Roland Martin for that matter.
Roland Martin, right? At
Yeah.
least he's trying to have
The
these kinds of
conversation.
conversations,
Right.
right? You can
Right.
agree with some things, disagree with some things. I think I actually once started listening to Boyce, or is it
Sure.
Royce Watkins again, Dr. Watkins again. I had to, tune him out for a while. I was
But
like,
I mean, but the thing is, it's not whether you agree or disagree. It's just a
right,
matter of having a conversation or
yes,
having some conversation centered around something other than who won the game last night.
right. The
So
problem I have is like I said, if we're going to circle back to Obama, President Barack Obama, he has some flaws. There's some things I was like, okay, you're about
sure,
some
he's human.
shenanigans
Yeah,
here,
he's a human.
but
Give me
I
one
still
second.
consider him to be close
Yes.
to excellence.
No, I didn't. Sorry about that.
Oh, you better listen to the boss.
Yes.
She was like, take those headphones off your head. See, I love seeing that. I'm like, yes.
All right. It
Look, I'm
happens.
talking big stuff, but my husband's
It
downstairs. He
happens.
might be knocked out. So,
On
but
his couch, as long as he gets to keep his
I
couch.
don't want to talk about this
Trolling
wrong.
again.
Yeah, I'm like, this couch gives me like I hate that
Yeah,
guy.
I probably had some good intellectual conversations on that couch, I bet.
He's in his happy place right now. He's not going to work tomorrow because he's gonna go golf. He's taking the day off, so he's staying up a little later. He's like an early person. He gets in like at
Hey,
like 4 or
had
5
some good
o'clock.
intellectual conversations on the golf course, is what they tell me. Meet some powerful people.
Whatever. So yeah,
That's what they tell me. I've never played, but
he tried to get me to get a membership out there. I was like, I haven't played since 1999. My stepdad, he's older now, but like he was a scratch golfer and he grew up in Mississippi. He had all kinds of really cool there was like the black caddies and stuff like that. So he
hmm
grew up playing, believe it or not, even though he was way down in the south. So when he came up north, I grew up in the Northeast and now I'm down here in DMV area. So he was just kind of like, let me break it down to you on how this golf thing works. And I think the last time I hit a ball was in 1999,
oh,
literally.
good grief.
Yeah, so
Well,
I'm like the great disappointment because he was like,
that's okay.
I could make you into a great golfer. I was like, I'm gonna do something else. But anyway, so I think so circling back to Black excellence, let me put that back up there again. Where is this banner I had? Gosh, put that right back up. I'm sorry. It's portraying great qualities that make the community proud,
hmm
right? And so I'm like, we don't see enough of the intellectualism. So I'm gonna circle down to the beauty portion. Oh, I see D Shabazz trying to come in
See
here.
that?
He's getting ready to set it off. D Shabazz, what's going on, homie? Can you hear
Hey,
us?
what's happening? Hold on one
Always be
second.
on flag.
I got to get it together.
All right, get yourself together. Mute yourself until you get yourself together. I'm gonna move on to the beauty element for a second.
Sure.
If you think about in the past, we valued like I hate to say, but it was a little bit a more conservative approach, right? We valued like elegance and grace.
hmm
Now we value you- being very Eurocentric in terms of the super long wig. And actually, I don't think there's a problem with wearing wigs. Actually, I mean, because back on the continent, people wore wigs long before it was super popular. I don't
hmm
have a problem with wigs, but I feel like when we talk about beauty, it's never Afrocentric features. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? We go for the long wig, ex-
I
accentuating
know
the
what you
lip,
mean.
we
But,
contour the nose.
but
It's everybody
but
looks the
that's
same.
to me, that's more a social conditioning type of thing over
Yeah.
history, over the entire history of man,
Mhm.
basically. I don't think that's necessarily something that has anything to do with us, but it's just what's thrown up in your face and unless you're taught otherwise,
But we're
that's what
not
you're
teaching
taught to
it.
believe is, huh?
But are we teaching it? We're not teaching it. The first
I
thing
don't
that
have,
people,
I mean, I don't
the
teach
first
it
thing
or
people
not. I don't have anybody to teach it to. I don't have any kids,
Well, I mean, the
but
first thing we do when we say, "Oh, you want to look beautiful? Go get yourself a really long wig and have your edges like plastered on your head all the way down here."
do we say that or is it just that's what
I
people
mean,
do?
not literally, but I'm just kind of like, and so when you look at the women,
Okay, I think I'm ready.
are
Oh,
you
there we
ready?
go. My
All right,
man.
Can you hear me?
we can hear you, and it's clear today.
Okay,
Amen.
All
so
right,
let's. I'm coming in late, you know,
all right.
but I think I'll still make it hot in here. So,
Oh, Lord.
what was the last I heard? A little bit was about LeBron James.
You're that far
Oh,
back.
wow, you
Oh, Jesus. So
yeah,
let me see if I
that
can
was 10 minutes
summarize real
ago.
quick. Basically, what I said was, what is Black excellence? I read the definition. I said Black excellence from what I pulled from the internet, kind of sort of was portraying great qualities that make the community proud. So I said back in the day, we value things like intellectualism, femininity, masculinity, community, family, those types of things. And nowadays, it appears based on perception, and I'm not basing this on facts, it appears we value sports figures, um, like our physical aesthetic, right? We value our entertainers. It's not based off of like intellectualism. So, like for example, I said back during the civil rights era, We valued people who were willing to have these conscious debates, whether you agreed with the politics or not. That was valued. We valued our HBCUs, right? Because education was so difficult to obtain because we didn't have the finances. So our HBCUs were seen as something to be lauded and applauded. And nowadays, we'll take someone like a Barack Obama, and if you think about in the past, whether you agreed with the politics or not, we still value that excellence, that intellectualism. Now, because we don't agree with politics, we tear down um, the black politician. We start to question their blackness, and then we question their sexuality, right? We do all of these things. We don't value just the intellectual conversation anymore, whether you agree or not. Those things aren't put in the forefront. What we will put in the front is, chicks with the wigs and the edges that come all the way down here with the BBLs. And when we're on TV, we got our
Black women with
tatas hanging out,
BBLs, but
right? I mean, we got our tatas hanging out. We value the misogynistic music. We value our entertainers bumping and grinding on the stage. Like we can't just sing in like back in the day. We valued a couple of two steps and people just singing and enjoying their artistry.
personally,
Now we
greatest
got to bump
entertainer.
and grind.
I want to see a show, greatest entertainer live,
We
Well,
don't
Michael Jackson
we
type
don't
stuff.
value black. Our black excellence, so called, has changed.
yeah, I would agree to the standard has changed, but I would also say that a lot of this and the so-called values have been, I want to say, pushed, or these ideas, or this kind of, for lack of a better word, propaganda has been pushed by, I believe, financially and otherwise, folks outside of the black community that in the long run want to damage or cannot handle black people in what you said in the other realm of what we would call black excellence. So they're more comfortable with the buffoonery, like you just said, the modern day minstrel, I would call it.
Yep, that's
When,
my favorite. That's what I used to call it.
what's that?
That's what I was calling it, I think, months ago. I said it's like very minstrel.
Yeah, that's what it is. If you look at even the dumbing down of like how some of these folks are speaking, I mean, just think how hip hop in and of itself has devolved. I mean, if you think about it, when it was back in the '80s, like when LL Cool J first hit the music scene, and during that time period, it was a marvel, and you were looked upon as being a wordsmith, and how broad your vocabulary was. Now it doesn't even matter. So these guys aren't even speaking English. They're making all kind of noise, and they're just using some kind of melodic noise, and the music means nothing. I mean, the lyrics mean nothing. So it's a dumbing down. It's a pushing of a lot of antisocial behavior, bad bad behavior, all that. So, but I don't think it's necessarily from us. I think it's an outside entity pushing the propaganda based on the financial aspect of it, because black folks, we have not controlled or have not grown our economy, so we're not in the spot to
Oh,
finance the type of imagery and message that we would want to see.
oh,
The financial
wait a
portion,
minute.
I was going to speak to that on my next bullet. I didn't get a chance to get there. You just
Oh,
jumped right on.
I'm just coming in and
Actually,
wrecking up shop, huh?
No, it's good. It's good because that was one of the talking points I had in terms of the black athletes thing. But that's okay. It's fine. It's totally fine because um, I mean, yeah, I think some of it is pushed by outside people, but I think we also allow ourselves to be influenced by these things because when you think in the past, I mean, and you can always find something to disprove every talking point, right? Our our leaders, they weren't easily swayed. I'm not saying that there wasn't corrupt behavior, but what I'm saying was there appeared to be a much more, there was something that was uniting the community, and nothing is uniting us now. We're at the point now where we are debating
I would venture to say
blackness.
that I think I would venture to say that I don't think, even if we talk about the leaders of yesteryear, we're looking at them in hindsight, and during the time period when they were there. A lot of those what we call leaders weren't appreciated, weren't followed, maybe by small masses, and they didn't really
They didn't
get
become
their
celebrated till later on, to after.
yeah, they didn't get
Yeah.
celebrated until they died, and usually that's because when they're dead, that's when the dominant society knows that they're safe. So that's when they start giving them streets and holidays and stuff of that nature.
You kill me. I mean, it's true, but I can kill you to be
Well,
like, that's when
it's
you get a
it's,
street.
it's interesting because we were talking about sports earlier, and I made that argument many times about Muhammad Ali. You know, everybody talk. You always hear, you know, he celebrated. Period. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I said that's in the context. I always tell people that's in the context of now. When he was refusing to go to Vietnam, he was one of the most hated people in America.
Well, not
And
only that, the fact that he even did that, even before the draft came in, remember, he joined the Nation of Islam. And
yeah,
that was very foreign to those
so
outside of, let's say, New York City or maybe major cities where the
yeah,
Nation of Islam
New
had a
York,
huge
Chicago,
footprint.
yeah,
And so that day was the first thing. He a Muslim. He don't eat no pork.
yeah.
What's something wrong with it?
But no, but even his language at the time, where you see certain interviews where he's not afraid to speak on what was going on at that time. You know,
Right.
they, so then I bring that all the way back to now, and you know, no matter what people's opinion of it is when they still, oh, okay, that's your picture.
Oh yeah, I
When,
just want to throw that out there.
when people bring up you know, the whole thing that Colin Kaepernick was doing, you made me think about when you said it's okay once people feel they're safe. So once the NFL realized he's not going to be back in the NFL, all of a sudden you saw slogans on the back of the helmets: "End racism. It takes all of us." All of that stuff, and it goes back. It's what you were saying a minute ago. Once the other side feels they're safe, okay, then it's okay to agree, or it's okay to celebrate. When
Well,
2 years
not only
ago you
that,
were
we
vilifying
got
the
to also
message.
let's be honest. Within the black community, we have this coon spirit that we won't really accept some black person until white folks think he's okay. Prime example of the behavior of coon behavior, and I think, and the social aspect of it, was the foolishness of when black folks were going to the theater for Black Panther. It wasn't until
Oh, the
white folk
movie.
and Marvel okayed that movie, then you had the foolishness of folks going to the theaters and mixing this whole King Jaffe Jofa or whatever that movie was, Coming to America. And I've heard foolishness of folks was at the theater standing before the film came on, singing the Black Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Really?
It's just it's like, yeah,
I
I've
I
missed
heard
never
all
it.
heard
that.
of all of this.
Yeah, I
This is
missed all
news
of
to
that.
me.
Yeah.
I guess I was just under a rock because everything you're saying right now, I'm like, I never heard of
I
this.
just thought Black Panther was a cool movie. I
I
wanted to see
did
it.
No,
too.
don't get me wrong. It was, but the phenomenal success and why a lot of black folks who generally, for the most part, aren't into the Marvel movie franchise or watching it or fanatic
Oh
of
yeah,
that
no.
to that point or fans of it were just what do you call jumped on the bandwagon because white
Bandwagon.
folks said it was okay.
Oh, okay,
Well,
no.
let me jump in
I
now for a
was all
second.
over the Marvel movie, so I
Well, I
can't.
was always a Marvel fan, but I mean, I was talking about Marvel movies today. I got to watch the new Thor movie and some other stuff. But honestly, I don't, I don't even know if I'm disagreeing. I'm just gonna say this. I think the fact that there was an alternative for Black people to see themselves as a heroic person got people in the movies. I don't know if it's because they were
No, I agree with the people were excited to see the movie on that aspect, but I'm talking about how people went over the top to the point of where they're wearing these being cosplaying to this coming to America aspect of going to the theaters and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that was because white folks said it was okay. I got another case in point. Well, back in the day,
hold on a
I
second.
remember
Wait, hold on. Before you move on, like, where was this happen? I've never. I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but like, and keep in mind, I
when look,
about
I want you what you want to do is if you look, you I hate to say Google it, but yeah, look it up. when the first weekend of Black Panther hit the theaters, and just look at the imagery, black folks who attended the theaters, and I don't know what there. A lot of folks was in this whole weird coming to America. Like you had some person dressed up like King Jockey Joe Burr
Oh
going
my
to
At
the
Black
theater.
Panther?
Yeah.
I missed all of that.
I missed that. Like, what world? Oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna do Wakanda forever now just to mess with you.
So what now?
I said I'm gonna start doing Wakanda forever just to mess with you. I mean, like, you know how some people are like into that and they start doing Wakanda. I'm like, okay, whatever. But now every time like I want to mess with you, I'm just gonna send a picture of myself like Wakanda. I'm like, honestly, I just never heard of that. But I also think I was living under a rock because I had 500 kids. So like, I don't even remember where I saw Black Panther. I think I saw it at home when it came out, because that's how, So maybe that's why I just wasn't really. I don't know. I mean, I believe
Paying
you.
attention to it. Yeah.
I
I
really
mean, but
wasn't. I've never
but
heard of
my
that.
point is what I'm saying is a lot of black folks really don't back anything that's really predominant that's going to be for our favor, unless white folks put it this way: anything that black folks may want to enjoy or maybe progressive for us. If white folks have a dislike for it, a lot of black folks will be hesitant to back it up, even though back that position or back any thing of that nature, unless white folks give it an okay.
Well, what
We have
example?
this inner. We have a lot of us have this inner coon in us.
Well, what example are you talking about in reference to what?
Well, okay. Another reference would be like the celebration of, let's say, Malcolm X. You have all these people now who are like, oh yeah, Malcolm X was alive. I would have done this, that, and the other. I would have backed him. I would have been with Malcolm X, or I would have been with Martin Luther King. When realistically, when Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were active at the time, uh, pushing, for the equality and freedom of black folks, a lot of black people was on the sideline.
Like me, I would have been on the sideline. I'm telling
I
you right
mean,
now. I'm not trying to
I
do a
don't.
whole lot of arguing.
Right.
I feel like that's for the men.
Obviously, I wasn't there, but in the context of that time, I could understand why a lot of people might have been on the sideline. Yeah.
Or okay, sideline, or even saying negative stuffs
Now,
about them.
saying negative stuff, I can't rock with that. But I could understand why you might not have, at the time. I don't want dog. Some people like, look, I'm not willing to go out there and get bit by dogs, cracked over the head, sprayed with water hoses. Some people just I'm not
Well,
with
I'm
that.
just saying, even the Malcolm
Or
X
they were
aspect
afraid
as
of it. I'm
well.
not gonna say they weren't with it, they were afraid of it. And that's I understand in the context of the time. I don't know if that's necessarily that's just fear. That's to me, that's just fear that was instilled in them. And they, some people went out and did what they did despite the fear. And I'm glad they did, because I can do what I want to do now because of it. But I can understand.
I would even venture to say when Barack Obama got his backing, it wasn't until a certain number of white folks felt comfortable with Obama that black folks really started backing him.
I mean, to be honest, I never heard of him until he ran for president. I was like, I didn't know him as a senator. I didn't remember him as a senator when he popped up as a presidential candidate. I was like, oh, okay, this guy can actually win. And I don't know. I would venture to say that if you took a poll and people were honest, a lot of people would say, yeah, I never heard of him before he ran for president. I mean, I'm not I follow politics, but I don't follow politics. So.
Okay, but yeah, I'm just saying in that regard, it's another example. So
Sure.
Well, getting back to the black excellence, I feel like even like with Barack, what happened was when he started speaking and people disagreed with some of his policies and his politic and his mannerisms, right? There was an attack on his nationality, his blackness, and like I said, I'm not saying to question his sexuality, but that's what we do with our
I
black
will
people.
say I might disagree with this. I will say when he first came out and ran, like like um my brother just said, a lot of black folks didn't know who he was until white people put him on the radar, and at first they were vetting him and the way how they were vetting him, white folks were doing this, what I would call projection on him. If you remember, they were talking about, there were black folks supposedly saying, we don't know if he's black enough. We don't know if he's black enough. That was a talking heads, and this is my belief, projecting what white people were really saying, and what it was, their code was basically saying, we're worried if he's too black, not if he's black enough. Is he too black? And they figured out he wasn't too black, and that's when they backed him. And then that's when the ball started rolling, when black folks started jumping on the bandwagon because white folks said he was good.
But let me offer up, I'm just going to inject something for a second. And it's not based on fact. So take that with a grain of salt. So this is easily attackable. There are black politicians, whether national or locally, that are supported by tons and tons of black people all the time. Those black politicians are not necessarily supported by white people. And the black populace who supports the black politicians that may or may not get elected, they're not waiting on white approval. I think what got Obama the notoriety per se was he had white approval. I don't know if it was a whole bunch of black people waiting to vet him based off of white people. I think it's just that more white people were like, we can deal with this guy. He's got a lighter tone. He's dresses nice. Some people find him to be handsome or whatever it is. I mean, and so like I said, this isn't based on fact. This is based on, I don't know, me drinking this wine. That's what it's based on. I just think that black people do vote for black candidates. It's just that many white people don't necessarily support those candidates because maybe they are too blackety black. I don't think black people are afraid of voting for black candidates. And like I said, this isn't based on data. I don't have no data points.
Well, I mean, the reality is, unless you live in a predominantly black area, you can have every black vote there is, and you still need those white votes to win.
Right. So I'm not sure if I agree with your point that the black people were waiting for white people to co-sign this person as being valid. I just think that white people had significant numbers that happened to co-sign with black people, coincide with black people wanting to vote for him. And like I said, this isn't
But,
based on that.
but what I'm talking about is more so about behavior, of like when black folks would really start to back something, push something to a degree. And
I think I got. I
I
think you're
get your
saying.
point.
I think you're
I mean,
saying. I think it's more once it goes mainstream. It's the majority jumps on board then. But if you look at who was supporting him, not necessarily Barack Obama, but anybody in that type of not position is a bad word, but anybody in that realm where you need to garner public support for whatever, the masses don't jump on until you go mainstream. When you're grassroots or whatever, you don't get the masses are afraid to jump on or whatever,
I think that goes across any community though.
no, there's some other communities. If a person is backing and coming out of the from the guts or the bottom of, or from the people of their community, regardless of any outsiders um, having an issue with them, they will back them to the hill. Like, for example, the Jewish community, and the Jewish particular, you've never heard, even if they've been wrong, they'll still back them to the hill. Even some Asians or other groups. It's only black folks who they really need, or that have this behavior that they're really wanting white approval.
I will agree with that as a general statement. I think there are some, I just think that Black America as a whole struggle with outward affirmation. I
Well,
think we're struggling with affirming ourselves. So that's the reason why you have people who look to say that they're black and something. It can't just be black, right? Because if you can distance yourself from black as far as possible, then that's better. I think we want the white dollar. Like we always like Okay, I'm gonna like get really clumsy for a second. This isn't gonna come out clear at all. It's like I'm for reparations, but I feel like, and I believe they're owed to Black people, but I feel like we're in this begging mentality. I feel like, when you look at other communities, granted, I know that other communities have things that are probably put in place or things that haven't happened to them, right? But I think at some point, when do we do certain things for ourselves? And we have in the past, and we've been railroaded, right? I just, like I said, I'm really clumsy here. I just think that we're at the point where we're like, can you feed us? Can you provide us with reparations, even though they're owed? Can you do this? Do you think this is good? I would say, generally speaking, yeah, but that's why I said I'm really clumsy right now, right? Because when I circle back to the politician thing, though, I think with the politicians, Black people do vote for their Black politicians. It's just that, we may not have the force and numbers when you're talking about on a national scale to get this politician put in office on a regular basis. It's starting to happen more often in various positions, but I think Black people vote for Black politicians. I think.
I would say, okay, based on certain, depending, the last black politician, to be honest with you, maybe that was voted in by the people, regardless of white establishment disliking him or her.
Oh, you talking about that? What's the guy's name? You talking about down in Georgia?
No, I was gonna say Marion Barry.
in DC. Marion Barry got the Main Man
Marion
March.
Barry alone.
I would say no. Marion Barry was the last, I would say, who was able to get black support, even though the mainstream white Democrats, white whatever, disliked him and definitely did not want him in office. But it was those black folks in D.C. who loved and appreciated him and was the hell with whatever. We're gonna still vote him in.
Okay, I'll
I
give you
I
didn't
that.
live
think
in
I
he's
mean,
DC.
the last.
Everybody, I was gonna say
I can't
everybody I
think of
know
any other
that's.
politician on that level.
I would guess that it's probably, going what you're saying in that sense, it's probably always going to be a local politician that fits that bill. It's not going to be a national politician.
I
right.
I don't know about that. If you can think of one that's comparable, even
No,
let's say somebody.
honestly, I can't think of one
I
that's
can't.
comparable because anybody I know that's in our generation or older, growing up in DC at that time, they always talk about how despite Marion Barry's shortcomings, he was all about DC. He did a lot for the people of DC, which
Right.
is why he got voted back in. Um, you know,
Crack addict and all.
right. But
Crack addict and all.
I think it's different when you go to a national level.
It is.
It's a lot of the things that you do at a national level. I'm not gonna say don't affect people, but don't have the direct effect that local politician would have. Yeah.
So what I want to do is move on to the entertainment portion for a second before I move on to the next point. I wanted to talk about our entertainers for a second. I wanted to speak about Rihanna. She started off as Pon de Replay girl, right?
Rihanna.
Very hip hopish. Then she went very mainstream, good girl gone bad. And then when she made enough of her coins, she established her business.
Mhm,
And she catered towards brown skin. Well, when I say brown skin, I'm talking about brown women, various shades, right?
mhm,
Because when you look at the beauty business, when you look at makeup and everything, it doesn't necessarily cater to people with um, various shades of melanin. But then I look at other people. I look at somebody like a Beyonce. Now, I'm sure there's gonna be some weirdo Beyonce fan, Beehive fan out there who's gonna be like, she hates Beyonce. I don't really hate Beyonce. I don't dislike Beyonce. I just think she's got some ding dongery in her. Um, she's I feel like she's like the biggest hypocrite. She's very confusing, but we hold her in such high regard, and I don't consider her to be black excellence. Where am I going with this? The things that irk me about her is like her music is so, if you listen to the lyrics, it's like some of it's just lyrically dumb. Like she'll come out with something like Brown Skin Girl, whatever, which my daughter loves, right? I have a 10-year-old. It makes her feel like $1,000,000. But then she'll say things like bow down, bitchs. You know, I think about how I'm probably one of the few people who will cop to this, but in recent times, there's that whole thing that came out with her and Khalees. Khalees, you know, we know that a lot of our artists back in 20, 30 years ago, they got horrible deals. And then they all went bankrupt. It'd be like Khalees, it'd be like Chili, it's like Tony Braxton. There's so many artists who didn't own their music. So, or their masters rather, music masters, whatever. So what happens is Beyonce came out with her new music, which I'm really not all that interested in. I've heard a little bit of it just because it's been played on the radio. I'm like, not impressed. But when there was all this conversation and scuttlebutt around the Khalees situation, right? She's like, "Hey, look, I wish somebody had told me that they were using my music. I mean, like, you know, as an artist, as a woman, I was with her because I'm like, wait a second, how can you sit there and say you're pro woman, girls on the world, all this stuff, and then when you have an opportunity to pay homage to somebody who was known for the milkshake song or whatever, and I'm sitting there thinking like, and then her way, everybody thought it was like so classy. Instead of saying, you know what, hey, let's give a shout out to Khalees or pay homage to her or whatever, or help her try to get her masters back or whatever it is. What she did was she thought she was slick. Instead of honoring her and giving her that moment, those are her flowers, she chose to take her off her music. It's her prerogative, right? But my whole big thing is she knew that people like Pharrell or whoever it was that owned it. I don't know who owns it. I'm like, so what she'll do is she would rather take from these artists and use their music. And you know, she's already worth
I
$1,000,000.
was gonna say,
And when
but
somebody calls her out,
is that what she did? Because she didn't need. It's like, okay, I
what
don't need it. I don't need Khaleesi's sample. I don't know. That's what she. I mean, I heard bits
that's
and
what she
pieces of
did.
the
She
story.
used it,
I know
Khalees
she
called
used
her
it,
out, and then she took her off.
and then she
So
took
she
and
didn't need Khalees.
she dropped it, and she dropped the song from her album. I did hear about that,
But what I'm
but
saying
I
is
mean,
instead of just she already used this. First of all, she took it. She never once reached out to her. So Khalees was basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing. That's why I have my ticker up here. She's like, "Look, this was never a collaboration. They're trying to say this was a collab." She's like, "I didn't know about it until basically we played." She's like, "This was never a collab."
so
She
I
felt
guess
like
so. Here's my question: Who is the? And I'm not a Beyonce fan. I'm not a Beyonce hater. I'm not a. I'm. It's just man.
yeah.
I could care less. But who's the they? Did Beyonce say this out of her mouth, or is this the talking head saying this? And we've heard
Khalees
nothing.
came
I know
live.
what Khalees said, but I'm like, what was the response directly from the
What
other
she did
party?
was Beyonce is very passive aggressive. What she did was she just took it off. She just took
Okay,
it off.
I'm
But
not going to
instead of
use it. Okay,
right. So I mean, and it's her prerogative. That's why I say it's her prerogative. But it's like these little things. But and they say that she's known for doing that in the past. Now, when I
okay,
say they, it's like you'll see
fair
stuff out
enough.
there. I looked
Yeah,
it up.
fair enough.
I don't have a whole lot of. I'd have to go and like pull out every single thing I've ever seen on the internet, which I'm not that interested in doing because I don't care that much. The point I was making was I was just using that content to make my point, which is Beyonce, as big of a platform she is, when we talk about Black excellence, to me, this is not an example of womanhood I would want for my child because the only time I see her is when she has no clothes on. She's in a tutu. She exploits her sexuality, and there's nothing wrong with like the woman's body is not inherently bad, being beautiful, being voluptuous, being sexual, right? But that's all she shows. I never hear her say anything else. Like she has this huge platform, you know, and then maybe it's just me because I place undue or I don't know if I should say unnecessary, but I'm like, she has this huge platform. Um, some of the things that come out of her mouth, I'm like, it's just so problematic. And a lot of it's because she's lacking in education. I'm not sure if she's graduated high school. I know at one point she was not even a high school graduate or GED graduate. I don't know. I just find her to be highly problematic. Whereas I look at somebody beyond, and I don't want to like tout her to be like an angel. What I am saying was at least she tried to do something that's like, okay, like she established a business and she's like, okay, as far as beauty goes, I'm going to make sure that Black women are represented. I look at people, like I said, like a LeBron James who established, well, he's not really an entertainer. But you understand what I'm saying? Like when I see people doing these kind of things, that's what I think of as Black excellence. Instead, Black excellence now in our entertainers is women bumping and grinding and
So
tampon
here's
game.
so here's my question. Just and we talked about this before. We talked about this earlier. I think before Disha Bass came on. Just be and I don't know the answer for Beyonce, But just because she's not out there and in the camera talking, I did this, I did that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Look at this over here. Doesn't mean she's not doing it.
Right. And that's very well could be the case with a lot of people, but I'm always like too much is given, much is required. And I think that
Sure.
oftentimes people may need to see somebody like a Beyonce. The fact of the matter is there are people who were easily influenced. Look how many people are willing to do things in the name of an entertainer. Like Nicki
But I
Minaj,
think
people are
I
acting.
think that's part of our problem as far as black folks. We put entertainers too much on a pedestal and not putting them where they properly belong. They're basically entertainers, court jesters, folks to make you just feel good for a second. They're not builders of communities. They're not builders of industries. They're nobody of significance when it comes to building. They're there to entertain. So that's how we have to. But if you look at other communities, they don't put um, their entertainers in high regards in that way. Yeah, you may have celebrity gossip and all that other kind of crap, but they don't put them in a high regards when it comes down to it. You know, it's more so about the leaders within other communities, the business leaders, the people who build industries and other aspects. So we have been
I don't know. I would
fooled.
have to disagree with that, but
Okay.
I mean, you say, and probably because we pay.
Okay, who is the equivalent? Give me the equivalent of Beyonce within the white community.
Pick one. Pick any woman in country music. I
Right,
don't.
but do they have the same regard? Do they have the same kind of following like the so-called beehive and all this other kind of foolishness that comes
Absolutely,
with it? Okay.
absolutely,
I think so.
absolutely.
I think
You
so. Yeah.
when the Judd sisters do something,
Yeah.
The
the
who?
world is all
Judd.
over that. The
The
Judd
Judd.
sisters. When Dolly Parton did something, the world is all over that. I'm not a country music
It
fan, and
doesn't
I
even
know
have to
who
be
these people
country.
are.
It could be Taylor Swift.
No, but what I mean
Yeah,
is
but you're making a great
they
point.
do hold those people in that same regard.
But
We
I'm
just don't pay
saying,
attention
okay,
to it because
they
that's
the
not what we follow.
other communities looked at on a certain level, but they don't put them in an awestruck or to the level like leader, almost leadership capability, like they don't put them on the same level of a leader, someone who's writing policies or
I don't
thinkers
know. I mean, I
within
don't
the
know that.
over.
I don't know that we
Didn't
do
they? Well,
either.
I don't know.
Um,
Who didn't Minnesota or Montana? Well, no, he was a wrestler. I'm sorry.
that was Jesse the Body Ventura, guy that
Yeah, my bad.
governor of Minnesota. Yeah. Um, I only know that because I was a big wrestling fan in the '80s. but but no, I mean, I think I don't think that's a black or white thing. I just think that's a celebrity thing. Anybody that's a celebrity gets put on this pedestal as if they're going to be
But they
perfect.
don't put them on. I don't think. Well, because when sometimes, let's prime example. Let's say how the media will sometimes, when it comes to certain social issues or whatever,
Sure,
they'll they'll put the microphone right into the black entertainer's face, one
absolutely they will. Yeah,
who's there to make sure white folks feel comfortable. So yeah, they're gonna throw
but
it
let
in
me
their
ask you
face.
a question though:
But who is the
Who
equivalent
controls the
that they do
media?
that to? Huh?
Who controls the media?
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
us. So that
Well,
makes sense.
that aspect, yeah, of the white media. I should clarify white media. I should say white media. There is the growing black media or through the new medium of the internet and stuff like social media. But
But I mean, but
yeah,
overall, I don't disagree with you. But I'm just there's the spin that gets put on stuff. We don't make the spin because we don't make the content that comes out on the major media outlets. But I
all right.
mean, but for me, it's and we were talking about this. I think we've talked about this before, where a lot of times we don't get to see, and I'm gonna move away from Beyonce a little bit, just talk general terms. We don't get to see a lot the positive or what you're talking about, community building and industry building. We don't get to see those things because they don't get put to the forefront. For example, if I brought up the name Byron Allen, we might all know who he is, but a lot of people don't know. He's a black guy who's a billionaire
That's the media.
who has a bit. He's very heavy in media and doing a lot of positive things, but nobody talks about him. You don't see any stories about him. You don't see him run anything about anything he does positive.
Well, that goes back to my point, which goes back to Black excellence. I said in the past, it looked like one thing. I said today, it looks like sports figures, beauty, representation, or whatever, and entertainers. We don't hear people talk about the business stuff. We don't
I,
hear enough of like a Boyce Watkins
but
talking financial, you
but
know.
but I think again that goes back to, yeah, we've lost ground of our own media. I think when we talk about black leadership in the yesteryears, we had our own publications, our own print media, like the Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, and other mediums, other outlets like that that would help push or make black folks aware of. It's not until recently now with with the social media, with the new black media, that's
Right.
kind of gaining ground again.
Well,
Once,
I think part of that is also economic, right? So
right,
now it doesn't cost, to run. It doesn't cost anything to do what we're doing right now,
right,
right?
right. But I'm saying that's part of where we lost our ground with the so-called, and I'm not going to necessarily put it on integration, but that's on us. We
Sure,
let our own media, print media, go away. Like I
sure.
said, you had the Pittsburgh Courier, which was well known, the Chicago Defender, nationally known, and
Hmm.
had a lot of people who would get their paper,
Hmm. Yeah.
subscribers to their journals.
Oh no,
So we allowed those to fail and no longer available.
well, that's yeah. I think that's where we as a community dropped the ball.
Yeah,
In
but I
fact,
think that's because it goes back to that. I think a lot of us felt we were good. Now the white folks let us into whatever our mindset was, access to
and
certain things, whether we could drop, and that's why a lot of the historically black colleges, once integration hit,
that's exactly where I was
the
about to go.
enrollment fell. Enrollment fell, particularly in the '60s, going
I
into the
was
'70s.
I was just about to go there,
Yeah,
because
I was talking about that
we
earlier.
mentioned HBCUs
Yep.
earlier. I watched. We talked about this a while back when I was Channing Crowder, who went to the University of Florida. He had this discussion with Deion Sanders when he first took over Jackson State about how, hey, I'm not against HBCUs, but they're so far behind they'll never be able to catch up to the
Oh, that's good.
PWIs, and as far as resources. And I said it's interesting because the University of Alabama didn't have their first black player on their football team until the 60s, which is damn, it's only 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And now you look at their football team, it's what, 80% black?
Yeah,
And as a result of us now being able to go to, any PWI we want to, on an athletic scholarship, well, then all those resources went to, all those millions and billions of dollars that could have been coming into HBCUs are now going to the Big Ten, the SEC, the Pac-12, ACC, and all the others, because our top athletes go to those places first.
Well,
Um,
that's where I was going into next. So hold off on that. I want to wrap this one up on Black excellence and what is it, what it looked like in the past and what it looks like now. Then we're going to segue right into what you're talking about. Let me just say this. I feel like right now with Black excellence, and I say that with earmarks, I feel like we need a new rebranding.
mhm. So
And I
I'm
don't have an answer. I don't. I don't have an answer. I don't have a really. I feel like it needs to be rebranded. I'm tired of hearing Black excellence, and the first thing they talk about is this is our king and queen. This is royalty, and they say Beyonce and Jay Z. It's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I'm like, please stop
I mean,
saying that.
I don't. I mean,
well,
Black
again, I don't
royalty.
necessarily have a problem with those
I,
two.
I, I mean, to be honest with you, we got so many other issues instead of us worrying about celebrities. I mean, and I think it all goes back down to the family. We don't have a black family anymore. We
We
have
talked about that
individuals.
earlier.
We have individuals on their own individual thing. Um, I don't want to gender war and say who's the cause or who's the blame, but
Right.
what we do need, both men and women, to take accountability of their actions and what they've done and admit, okay, you know what? I made a mistake. I was dumb by having a baby with this woman who we knew had certain behavioral issues, or the woman I knew I shouldn't have had a baby with Ray Ray, knowing that he has 3 other baby mamas, and I'm joining the baby mama team. So, you know,
Imagine
you
taking
have to start there.
That's funny.
I can't with him today. But anyway, so
Say what?
I said, I can't with you today.
What?
But
Am I wrong? No.
I just laugh because I said the go-to that everybody goes to. There's so many other things, but that's fine.
I mean, but we're talking about families, unless they and then Ray ain't trying to have no family unless they're gonna start having polygamy, and then Ray stepping up to the plate and say he gonna marry all his baby mamas and they have a family in that regards. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a multi-pronged, because then when you talk about that, you also gotta bring in the divorce rate, where people tried to have families and it didn't work, or for whatever reason they didn't make it work. So I think there's a lot of.
I mean, there's a lot of pieces to that, but we got to be honest and look at there's a 20% of these fools who are out there impregnating a lot of these women. And a lot of these women need to be honest and say, hey, we're choosing the 20% of these bad guys to have children with.
I think the only thing I want to say is this, because and I would love to see the data that matches. I think, and I don't want to get down to gender war. The talking point always seems to be that these women are choosing the same guy, and I'm not sure if I believe that. It can't be the same guy.
I mean, this is anecdotal, but here's a prime example. If you guys remember when what's her name, Ivania Van Zandt or whatever, had that show Fix My Life, and remember she had that fool on there who had 25 children with 11 different women.
I remember that.
But that's like an extreme edge case. I'm not talking about that guy. I mean, because not everybody's got 25, mothers.
No, but not everybody. That's what I'm saying. There's a small number of dudes who are out there being irresponsible.
But there's a lot of guys who are irresponsible and they're not having 25, different mothers. There's guys who might just have 1 or 2.
That's still irresponsible, and that's a small number of guys.
I disagree. There's a lot of single people.
The data says that the data says there's 51% of black men who are unmarried, no children, who are middle class.
There are a lot of women. See, this is the thing. This is why you have data scientists, because there are men who fall into that category, but they're not going out like trying to be like, people get caught up, women get caught up, men get caught up, right? The difference is other communities have resources where they can either terminate or they just marry each other and then they're miserable. I just feel like there's so much more that goes into it than saying that, and I hate having that as the talking point, because we can say that for another live. I'm gonna move past this. I know where you're going. I'm just being Patty, and I'm gonna move on.
Put that topic down in the notes.
Yes, I want to say this and start this up. I just think that the civil rights era, I think, was very unifying, because we had a common, I don't want to say enemy, but we had a common enemy. And now there is a war on gender. There is a war on identity. There is a war on.
Well, and I was going to say another thing I was going to bring up when you said the civil rights era is, it's not like that ever ended. But if you bring it up now, if you try to say if there was a common
enemy, what happened to that enemy?
Yeah, I don't. We talked about data, right? The data actually shows that the civil rights era never ended. It ended in the terms of Jim Crow and that type of thing. But we see this all the time. Anytime some person of color steps up and brings up a legit point, not the BS, but a legit civil rights point, what happens? Inevitably, somebody in the mainstream media vilifies them.
Yeah.
And they just basically get treated like they're the worst thing ever for speaking up for their own rights. And
the latest attack.
Go ahead, the latest attack.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the latest attack. How they're doing it now? Any black.
Oh man, you went janky again.
And some other that has something to do with like some homosexual person, or have some homosexual person on the panel and bring up stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Or I guess use Ms. Bo's a straw man argument to throw everything off. So that's basically been the tactic to throw in some kind of LGBT thing, and particularly we need to also call out those black folks who are part of that community, that they try to put their homosexuality or whatever their behavior is in front of being black. And
That is true.
it's not your sexual behavior what happened, whatever caused your issue, is you being black first.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are using a shield of their sexual behavior as like it's making them something else other than black. Again, and that goes back to that, I guess, inner coon. They're trying to do something to make sure white folks feel that they're safe.
Inner coon. I love that. All right. So I'm gonna segue for a second to two. Hopefully these are two short ones, and we'll end on the athlete one. I want to talk about Kanye for a second. So
Oh,
Black Kanye, I just want to know,
Yeezy.
do we care about Black Kanye? I just want to know,
black.
Black.
Do we have the black Kanye is gone? He died with his mother.
I mean, because I think he's trying to make a comeback because he's talking
No,
about black
Listen,
I
children.
think
I said this.
he's understand what it is. He's when he's typical like OJ or whatever. White
Jay-
folks don't want him no more, and now he's trying or Stacey Dash. White folks don't want him no more, so they're trying to crawl back. I say no. Keep the door closed. Stay out. You
'Cause
made your choice. That's it.
I
Listen,
just want to say
Kanye.
he's only black, like the
Listen,
CPR
When it's
example
convenient.
of the-
no, I've said it a million times. Kanye is no dummy. Kanye pipes up when some release is about to drop. He's
Mhm.
about to drop something new in the Yeezy line, or he's got an album coming out. All of a sudden, you start hearing about Kanye. After
So the
that,
best.
you don't hear
Okay.
about Kanye anymore.
So the
Kanye's
best thing is just ignore him. So that's what we're
yeah,
saying.
I have
Kanye is
to
a
agree.
I
I
will
like
give him
those
the
guys.
one thing I will give him credit for. He's a master marketer because
He's a great marketer. He needs to be on somebody's
he
board.
knows exactly what he's doing. He ain't crazy and he ain't dumb.
Did you say on somebody's board? I think he
Yeah,
needs to be on some. I think he needs to be on somebody's couch.
that,
Maybe that too, but
that too.
listen,
But
when you can sell a pair of Uggs for rebranded Uggs for
Well,
150,
that just.
200, 300, $400, and people are buying it,
I
you're
mean,
pretty good at marketing.
it's. I don't know if it's marketing. I think where we are now in the society, we're basically in that old story. The emperor has no clothes on.
yeah, I love that the emperor has no clothes.
That's funny.
I think that's where we are as a society, and we're into whatever trendy things that somebody else says is popular, and we've been to a lot of folks are having their mind controlled through social media.
Listen, I can't even blame it on social media. I'm just like, look, man, I don't care
No, think
what
about
you
it. You have
say.
a lot of these so-called models now, and you know. Anyway, okay, yeah, all right.
Well, that's a different day. Yeah, that's another topic. But I,
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
just
that's why
think
I didn't even want to go there. That's why. But I'm
I
just saying that's where we are as a society.
Kim got him crazy. I think even Candace Owens got him crazy. I think he picks and chooses when he wants to be black. So I'm just kind of like, I will say he is a genius. He is. He is a master marketer, and he should be on somebody's board. I need to get him to market the Black Opinionated Women channel. I swear to goodness, it will blow up overnight. Now I might be crazy for it, but next thing
hey,
you know,
you be selling black opinionated woman sweatshirts for $200, and people
I
be buying them.
I know. I feel like you need to get this. I'm like, you know how his name changed to Yay? I'd be like, it'd be like, oh, for me, just opinionated.
And the other part to him is a lot of, like, I guess, like a lot of artists, they're weird. A lot of people who are successful in that artistry realm are really a lot of weirdos.
Yes,
It's
Black
not
Hollywood.
unique to Kanye. In history, a lot of those
Holly
people have
weird.
been weirdos, and Kanye fits the bill.
I call it Holly weird.
Yeah.
They are. They're so freaking weird. I swear to goodness. Let me just say the last thing. Not the last thing. R. Kelly. What do you think about now? Look, I just want to say this. R. Kelly was formally convicted federally. That came across my feed
Well,
today.
Again,
And
here's
now
what
we
I
know
say
what that
about.
closet song was about.
Here is what I say
honestly,
about R. Kelly. All the stuff that came out, his propaganda stuff that came out later on, and we knew who he was 20 or whatever that was when the
When he
video
married
came
Aaliyah,
out. but I would say whenever the video came out. Now the Aaliyah thing, that's with the parents. I don't know all the details on that aspect of it. But when he had to supposedly, if he was on that tape or whatever, we knew about that. But then folks gave him the pass, so he is where he was, who he was. And the fact that they reintroduced and did this whole propaganda thing to push getting him in jail later on was really,
So he's
I believe, was used to deflect from all the negative stuff that was coming out with all these white men and executive and entertainment industry
industry.
on the executive level. So they pushed that stuff out to basically turn your head away from the white guys to push it on R. Kelly. They first used these specials, then later on used the prosecutors to dig up stuff on him. And because of R. Kelly changed his behavior and it was no longer dealing with young girls, they couldn't really get him on that, so they got him on RICO charges. Now
So
think about it, and
I mean,
and if you think about it, hold on, and what they charge, and I'm not saying he's a good guy, but I'm saying the level of what they went to try to put him in jail. They used the RICO charges, number one, and then on top of that, they used the Mann Act to convict him. If you know the history of the Mann Act, that that law was basically pushed because of Jack Johnson. And so they dug deep in the crates to find something to fit the bill to finally get him. And they use RICO charges. RICO charges are really serious when you're talking about
hold
organized
on a
crime.
second.
I
I
Hold
was
don't
on a
gonna
think
say
second.
of
You may want
R.
to explain
Kelly.
to the audience, like we know who
Huh?
Jack
I'll say
Johnson is,
Rico
but
is very broad too. They can get
hey,
they can
Exactly.
damn near
explain.
throw Rico. All I
We
gotta do
know
is know you and have a conversation, and they can throw Rico at you.
That's my
we know
point.
who Jack Johnson is, but for those who might join in later and listen to this, you might want to explain who Jack Johnson is.
Jack Johnson was the
Our
first
favorite.
black heavyweight. Well, I would say, folks, Google, read. I really don't like to have to explain that, but Jack Johnson was the first black heavyweight when he became heavyweight. If those who don't know, when he first became heavyweight, white folks were not white folks. The government was so concerned that if he became heavyweight, somehow he would inspire black folks to cause a revolution. This is pre FBI.
Oh,
So this is how worried they were about.
sorry.
Say it again.
I was thinking of somebody
And
else.
the fact that he became said, what'd you say?
I was thinking of somebody else. I was thinking of the old Prince George's County executive.
No, Jack Johnson. I'm talking about Jack Johnson, the
You talking
heavyweight
about Jack
champ.
Johnson, the boxer? I know he's. Oh,
Yeah,
before
and
Jack,
that they came up with the Mann Act because of him.
I actually just
And
I just, of course, I hate that you say Google, but like you said, I just Googled it. And actually, it was a woman who was first convicted using the Mann Act, Bella Moore, mixed
but yeah,
race
they
woman from
created
New
that
York.
law
Yeah.
because of him. And the fact that they used that for R. Kelly just shows how far they needed to use to deflect on him because R. Kelly changed his behavior after he saw that videotape. What he did was, you know what? I'm not dealing with these young girls. You got to be over 18. So then,
Yeah, but I can't give him
so
a pass for all the shit that he
I'm
did
not giving
before
him a
that.
pass.
Yeah.
I'm saying he changed his behavior. If they should have convicted him back 20 years ago. Now to try to dig up all this other stuff, you could tell it was a deflection from all the other people who were of bad behavior. I'm not saying he was a good guy or not. It's the fact how they did that and the way how they were put the whole propaganda piece that went on. It felt like a hit piece. It felt like something.
You talking about
It
surviving
reminded
R. Kelly?
all that stuff. Yeah, there's a pattern that these folks do. They come up with these little specials. They first put these little things in the news in the media cycle. Then they'll have these specials. Then they'll finally find some prosecutor to dig up something and come up with something, and then push it. They'll spoil the well of public opinion, so the jury will already be tainted. So you see this pattern. We saw that with R. Kelly. We saw the same pattern with Bill Cosby. You'll see this pattern again. They'll first come up with some kind of story, some kind of thing. They'll first go on the media cycle. The next thing they'll come up with some kind of special, news special, and all this other hit piece stuff. And then finally they'll have a prosecutor because they've gotten a person in the court of public opinion already in negative. They basically tainted the jury pool.
So I will say this: I just learned something today, and with that being said, and I know it's going to piss you off. I think two things can be true. I think what you're saying right now, based off what you're saying, like I can believe that. But as a woman who is black, it's hard for men and women to really resonate together on something like an R. Kelly, because as a woman, I think about how I was in college, and now I'm not gonna put all my business out there, but just being 5'5", 5'6", barely like 112 pounds, and to have men try to wield their physical power, their influence, even as a professional, when people like it is hard to explain to someone when they hear the things that he's done. It's so sick, it's so depraved. So, from my point of view, regardless of how they got him, it is so disgusting on so many levels. Like, I don't care how they got him. I don't care. So
Well,
is
see,
it
that's a problem.
hold on.
That's a problem. I
Hold
do
on,
care.
hold on. Is it just in that black men are perhaps brought up on charges in a manner that is not levied the same way against like some of these other people who like the CBS guy, Matt Lauer, all these other people, right? Is it
Les
just
Moonves, all those guys
that's
in the
that's the
executive
name
board.
I
Yeah.
was thinking. Les Moonves, all these people. No, it's not just, and no one is going to debate you on that. We're going to say it's totally effed up. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, I don't even care. I'm gonna
No,
see you.
my point about R. Kelly was his charges and the stuff that he really should have been convicted of. Folks let him off. Then they came up with all this other stuff. Now I'm not saying he was a good guy or not. Okay, actually, what I'm saying is they tainted the court of public opinion on him, and the fact that it was used as a deflection tactic to move away from all the other people that were doing illegal stuff that they didn't go after because they needed to have focus on black folks or non or white
And what
guys.
I'm saying,
So,
which is totally gonna make you mad, I'm telling you right now, you very well can be 100% true, but
but
also he's
but
a
to say
bad
that
man.
you don't
I
care
don't.
how if they've done something illegal to do
I
something to convict a black
don't
person.
care. I really don't.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm
well
just being
that's
honest. I
okay.
don't.
But if they do something illegal on just on him, they'll do illegal on everybody. That's the point.
Well,
I-
well,
Which is
so
why I
It is
have
the point.
laws. That's
It
the
is
so I
the
point.
think the
point.
difference is
But I'm
they didn't
telling
do
you,
any.
it still is illegal. What I'm telling you, this is where I know we're gonna just have to agree to disagree. You can be 100% correct, and I'm telling you right now, I know it's not just, but it doesn't negate that he did something bad, and that doesn't mean
But
that the
here's
I'm
the
other
not saying
thing.
people.
he did anything bad. I'm not
Hold on.
saying
It
he
doesn't mean
didn't do
the other
anything
people
bad.
shouldn't be. Hold on a second. It doesn't mean the other people shouldn't be brought up on charges. But what I'm saying to you is whether they are brought up on charges or not, this man is a bad man. Just like hopefully one day they'll get these other people, which they're probably not. But it doesn't negate that this person is just a very sick,
But
disgusting
we got
individual.
to back up because they didn't do anything illegal to get him. They manipulated the system, but it wasn't illegal. So
No,
they weren't.
no.
It
Let's
was
who didn't
immoral.
do anything.
You
Let's
could
use
say
No, when I say illegal, I'm talking about also. I need to bring in Cosby, where he already had a deal. They violated his constitutional right,
And then he
where they
got
went.
out. Didn't he get out? He got
yeah,
Yeah,
he
out.
got out. He got out.
but the fact that the
Years
man was
ago.
old and he spent 1 minute or 1 hour in prison was that's too long.
It's too long in terms of from a legality of violating his constitutional right, but he was convicted on being a wackadoodle. Like I still don't.
Oh,
I don't.
whack!
I don't feel. I'm gonna be honest. I don't feel
It's a
sorry
technical
for him,
term.
and it's gonna be hard for anybody to convict him.
Look. I'm not saying anybody should feel sorry for him or R. Kelly. I'm saying if you're gonna have the law, use the law, but don't manipulate it and don't use a whole
Now, I
system.
will say they
Well, I
use
guess
this.
it's just frustrating that
Yeah.
as far as black folks, we don't see that aspect
Now,
of it.
I think people do see it though. I just
as
think
I'm
that people are
reading
like, he's
this,
still gross though. I
yeah,
think people are looking at it like, yes, it is not just, but he did this to our people. he did this to our people. So
legitimate.
how they got him is how they got him. They're just kind of like, you are a
Now, I mean, interestingly enough, they
false
used this
person.
same Mann Act to get Ghislaine Maxwell. They used the exact same law to
Yeah,
Who is
prosecute
who?
her. Ghislaine Maxwell,
I don't even
the
know who
what
that. He
the
got
white
accused of
lady.
doing
Jeffrey
something.
Epstein's
That's the white lady who was trafficking girls for Jeffrey
Oh,
Epstein. They used
okay,
the same
okay.
law
They
to
use
throw her
Van
in
Act for
jail.
her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they, well,
Yeah.
actually, ironically, both in 2021.
Right.
But
I mean, I learned something today, but I think where I was going with this, I was like, should he be considered black excellence?
No, not at
it's
all.
you know what
No, not R. Kelly.
it's
Excellent and R. Kelly. Those two words should never be in the same
it
sentence.
but at the same time it sucks because he is one of the best at his craft in music.
I mean, I would.
There's
Here's
no
the
doubt
thing
about
about
it. That's
here,
you can't
here's
even
the thing
argue
about.
that.
No, well, yeah, you can. Here's the thing about when you talk about art, it's all subjective. You know,
I
I've
mean,
always so. I mean, prime example. I've never thought of him as a great artist. Some of his lyrics were as stupid as can be. Prime example is "You Remind Me of My Jeep." When I heard that song, the
Well,
first thing I
Beyonce's
thought
the
was,
same nonsense.
huh? Right.
Beyonce's the same
And
nonsense.
let me just say this. The first thing when I heard that the idea of the song, "You Remind Me of My Jeep," my thoughts was, well, damn, how big is the girl? So,
Let me say
but
this. Let me say this.
but at the
Three
same time
Grammys,
when you
three
look at his
Grammys, hold on a second. Three Grammys, six AMAs, six Billboards, and eight Soul Train Awards. And I'm like, he's got Ignition. I Believe I Can
well,
Fly was made mainstream.
I was gonna say
Step into
his
the love.
his catalog, but it's like even if you talk to his peers in the industry, right, white or black, not his character, but his ability as an artist
his
producer,
artistry, I get it.
his
I get it.
artistry
I
among
get
his
it.
peers, he's regarded as one of the best.
I
Period.
would say no. I agree. He's talented.
So it's like
He's
you can't.
talented.
It sucks because you want to separate the two. Like, look, your character, who you are outside the studio, and all that stuff, and your talent. But we can't ignore his character, and that's the part that really sucks because
Yeah.
like he at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the guy's an excellent musician. He's one of the few guys who can walk into the studio by himself with nobody else and come out with a record full of with an album full of hits. That's not easy to do. Most people can't do that, and so on and so forth. But you got this other thing over here that makes the confliction. Should I even listen to his music? You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
I mean, in that regards, I mean, it's on the individual case. I
sure.
mean, just like if you're okay with listening to Jerry Lee, what is it, Great Balls of Fire
Great
guy,
Balls of Fire guy,
And
Elvis Presley.
and Elvis Presley, then if you can
You
listen to
should,
them, you can listen to R. Kelly.
this is true
Yeah,
because they
you
did the
know,
same thing.
Elvis is a trip. We already know that he robbed from the culture. But all right, we're gonna move past R. Kelly. So
Well, no,
basically,
we're talking about behavior and character. We're talking about dealing with young girls, so that
well,
would be the comparison.
okay, I'll give you that. So basically, R. Kelly cannot be considered black excellence. Hey, I'm just
No,
asking.
like I said, R. Kelly and excellence; those
He
two
can't
should
be
never be in the
okay.
same sentence.
I said he can't be celebrated like he
No,
once was.
I definitely. Well, you guys know. I'm sure you can figure out where I stand on
I,
that.
I, I can say talented. I would say R. Kelly and talented, but I would not use excellent in the same sentence with him.
I just wanted to ask the question because people. There's certain people who are automatically triggering.
Sure.
Barack Obama, Kobe Bryant, R. Kelly.
Kobe Bryant. Now, Kobe Bryant is triggering.
Oh yes, as soon as you bring it up, people are like, was he a sexual abuser? They'll be like, he's dead. You can't talk about his legacy. He's a
Well,
automatically people lose it.
I don't think he's. I don't think he was a sexual abuser. I think he had a groupie come to his room who was a nasty what they say 304, and then
That's
the white
304.
the white huh
That's the new term, I think.
304. If you had a
Yeah,
pager, do you have a calculator there, a digital calculator?
yeah. That's the new
Put
term
in
for
304.
HOE. That's the new term for HOE because I think you like flip it upside down or something. Oh, These your best. I mean, sorry, CPR kid.
I'm,
You fell out.
I got, but my thing got a little janky, I guess.
I was like, yeah, 304. I think if you put it on a
It's
calculator,
bad.
you put something, it's the HOE or something like
Yeah.
that. So
So
yeah, there's certain people who are triggering. Like I say, Bill Cosby, Kobe, Obama, R. Kelly, Kobe.
Kobe's really not triggering for me,
I
huh?
don't, I don't
Kobe,
know if Kobe. I don't know if Kobe is on that level of triggering. I really don't think he's there.
If you say anything about Kobe, they were like, you can't say
He's,
anything. He didn't do it. He didn't. The girl was a 304, and you can't debate it because he's gone. I'm like,
well, I
I
would
don't know
say this:
about
he was okay. He never got. He never was. He never was convicted of anything. They already proved this girl was kind of out there and had all kind of different semen in her drawers.
why you gotta be
That
draws?
she.
Like under the earth.
No, you
So
know what? I mean,
yeah,
it was just a fact. Look, he's like, look, man, yes, I cheated on he said I cheated on my wife, I screwed that up, I had sex with the girl, but I did not do what she says I'm doing. And I'm like, okay.
right.
And there's been nothing to prove otherwise. So I'm kind of
Right.
like, and
And I
it's in
think it's a dead
Colorado
issue at that
Springs.
point. Yeah, I think it's a dead issue,
And
quite honestly.
Colorado Springs is not known to be very
Black
treat
friendly.
us very well. So yeah. So
Okay, so
Friendly.
oh, go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to move on to black exploitation of athletes, black athletes and their exploitation. So I'm sorry, were you in CBR? Were you talking because it was a slight delay? So
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
No, I
didn't
won't
mean
say
to cut
anything.
you off.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that because I think there was like a delay and I think I cut you off and I didn't want to cut you off.
Go ahead. You're fine.
You sure?
Positive.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about, I didn't want to cut you off. So like the black athletes, I wanted to talk about like the exploitation of black athletes. You and I had a brief conversation. I know I got caught up doing some work related stuff, so I didn't get a chance to deep dive on that. I did a quick search on Google today, and it said 31.9 million is the average per year that I guess NCAA makes. In 2022, the NCAA is set to make about 625.5 million, which I thought it would have been billions.
But you got to remember that's the NCAA, which is the
Right,
governing body for all sports. How are they
right.
even making
Out,
money? You're
out
a
of, I
governing
even
body.
found out that it was out of Indiana, which is anecdotal. And then I was looking up. I said, well, what a percentage of the football, because football is huge, right? I said, what percentage of these footballers are black? Now I couldn't really narrow it down, but I went to one place and it said that 57 to 70% of the black footballers at NCAA level, Division One athletes or whatever it is, are black athletes. So when I was looking, I said, which was interesting. I'm going to pull up something only because I laughed when I saw this because I had used the word in my mind and I saw this and I was like, oh my God. Hold on 1 second. Is that it? No, hold on. It's highlighted in yellow. Here it is. I was thinking that this was the new plantation. And when I was doing my research, not research, I would say confirmation bias. I swear to goodness, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to pull this up. Race, money, and exploitation. Why college sport is the new plantation. So I'm just curious because I was thinking that actually, let me bring myself back into this. I was thinking when I was looking this up, I was like, you know what? I feel like football, but just collegiate sports in general is like the new plantation for black athletes. And when I saw that, it was just so perfect.
Yeah.
Let me
That's
take
probably, I mean, football and
Well,
basketball being the two
well,
biggest money making
that's not
sports.
necessarily new. Have you
no.
ever seen some of the when the athletes are getting ready to be I guess drafted from
Mhm.
college to the pros and have this whatever the GMs go to look at the talent there and they have them running and jumping and they're like measuring their thighs
Your
and
pro
almost
days. Yeah. Your pro days.
It's like an auction, right?
yeah.
It's your pro days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing but a
Did
modern
you
day
auction
auction
too?
block, slave auction block. And if you look
Oh,
at
yeah.
it from the college sports point of view, before this whole thing was talking about paying the athletes, they were basically, for lack of a better, when there was, I think it was on Real Sports that they talked about they talked to one of the players there. He basically looked at what they have to sign and everything. Once they sign their letters that they're going to,
The letter of intent.
Oh, he dropped out.
Did you drop out?
Did he drop out?
can you hear me?
Okay, you're
Yeah,
back.
we can now.
Yeah,
Once they
and
sign their letter of intent, that's the last thing we heard.
okay, once they sign their letter of intent, they basically become
This
a commodity,
this is what I was
and
thinking when I wrote my notes. Auction.
and and when they once they do that, their value of how they'll be as far as pro shows based on what they do on the field. They're basically a commodity, and they cannot earn any money from their labor.
Yeah.
So when they're in school, they can't, even though they're generating a lot of money for these institutions, they
And that's
can't.
all. So
They
and
can't.
that's always been the argument, right? It's like, why
Right.
can't you make money? And let's be honest, 90 something percent of these guys, college is it. You're not going to play after that. So these are your
Right.
prime earning years to take advantage of your own ability. Why can't you do that? Or why couldn't you? You can now, but why couldn't you for so long? And like to
Because they
make
were
it even
exploited.
worse, I can tell you when I was playing, I played college football from 94 to 97. 94, 95, you weren't even allowed to have a job. So if you wanted to go out and work somewhere part-time, that will automatically kill your eligibility. They changed that in 96. But the reality is you don't even have time. You don't have time for it anyway. But
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of those programs, they don't even allow those guys to. Here's the thing: when they sign some of those, a lot of folks think that, oh wow, we get to go to school and they get free. No, it's at a cost. And
yeah,
generally, when they get those scholarships, they are determined by the coach or whoever on the program. So, and it's not even a free ride for the full
no.
4 years. It's year by
It's year
year.
to year. It's year to
And
year.
here's
It
the thing
absolutely
about
is.
it: if you, because I had one friend of mine who was, they were recruiting him. They were saying all this good stuff to his mom and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
But then he signed his letter and went to the school. First day practice, the coach said to the guys, "Look, I didn't bring you down here to graduate. You're here to play football."
Yeah.
And they had to
I
be
wanted,
there,
I wanted
old dark 30, huh?
I was saying I wanted to jump in on that because so my husband, who is a software developer now, but like when he was in college, so he played Division 1. He was a Division 1 scholarship full ride athlete. Okay. When he was coming up through high school, junior high, high school, he ran some track, but he played football and basketball and he played lacrosse. He just happened to get a full ride for lacrosse. And some of the stuff you're talking about is true. He tells me stories all the time about how he had offers to go to several schools in this area and in New York and everything else. And these are hotbeds for lacrosse. And when he was in college, he said, "Let me tell you something. When you're there in college," he was like, "First of all, it's like a job.
It
It
is a
is a
job. Yeah, not
job."
like it is.
He said it's like Monday is film and recovery, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this, Thursday's this. You get on a plane or not plane or bus or whatever, wherever you go.
Depending on where you gotta
Plane for
go.
this, you got a recovery day. He's like, it is a job, and
Uh-huh.
they don't care if you graduate. They care because that, like, depending on whatever your Division 1 program is. Now, this was just lacrosse, right?
Yep.
My husband's always been an athlete, but it was like so crazy his like
Mhm.
how the courting process, the things that were offered to him at depending on which school. If you go to the school, we can give you this, we'll give you that, blah blah blah, but we're going to register you the first year. If you go to this school, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. The things he got away with, the things that were offered, and he couldn't work if he wanted to.
Mhm.
It was a job. After 3 years, he actually gave away his scholarship and moved back to this area. Well, he wound up taking advantage of some other opportunities, but he was like, I wasn't getting an education. And I knew that I could have played the professional route, but they didn't make money in lacrosse back then, right? And
Mhm.
he's like, I needed to get my education. And he came back. He's like, so imagine coming back and telling your parents, I gave up my scholarship. My body is beat down. I'm not getting an education because one, I'm a ding dong, but two, like, I don't have time. Oh, he was getting this party on, doing some silly things.
I
He was
mean,
like, I need to get serious, right?
yeah,
And his parents were like, you gave up a full ride? And he's like, do you know what is required of me? Now, different
yeah.
times, but he said it is a job.
But it's different times, but that part hasn't changed. Like, and
You're right.
that's where I get annoyed with people who don't know, and they're like, "Well, you're getting a free education. That education ain't free.
Well,
You
no,
working your ass off for
again,
that
no.
education.
Well, not only that, let's say
It's
no,
debt
no.
free if
Here's the other
you
thing:
go,
the
but
fact that the administrator of the coach or whoever has say over your scholarship, and it's not a 4 year ride; it's year by year, and it can change basically how the coach feels. And
now
here's
I
the
will
other
say this:
thing.
they
Ho- ho-
I do know this for a fact. They can't take your scholarship
Nick, yeah.
unless you do something
Right.
against
Right.
the established rules, or obviously you go out and break the law and do stuff like that. They can't
Right.
take your scholarship for underperformance,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. As long as you show up on time, put in the effort. If you don't turn
Yeah,
out
but
to be the
I'm
player they
saying
thought, they can't take you back.
but a lot of times the coaches will do things like, hey, engineering, no, 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 we need you to take basket weaving as a major because that's we know that's going to take too much out of you. So we
Yeah.
need you to focus on this, that, and the
Yeah,
third. If
yeah,
you don't take
now,
engineer, if you're not taking basket weaving, the scholarship ain't going to stay for you
yeah.
next
My
Now
year.
husband told
I
me he
will
would
say
have
the
to
good.
load up on credits. And then what happens is they would after they would load up on credits, they would figure out which classes they were passing or whatever, and they would keep those, but they take as much as they could. And then it was like, what? He was like, oh yeah, it was crazy. I
Yeah, I
know
mean
even
it's
women went through that.
same thing. Yeah, because it's the same thing for their sports too. It requires a hell of a commitment from on the athletic side. Now, I would say I was fortunate that I had coaches that'll tell you in a heartbeat, take you behind the class because the NFL ain't in your future, even if you're that good, coming from where you're coming from. So our coaches emphasize going to class. And I think at the smaller schools, that's more emphasized than if you're at one of these bigger powerhouse schools where you just become part of the machine. Um, I've never been to the big powerhouse schools, but from what I understand and interviews I've seen with players who were part of historically great teams, they'll tell you, the coach will tell you, hey man, you here. It was made clear to you, even if they didn't say it, it was made clear to you. You're here to play this sport. If you choose to go to class and get a degree, that's on you. But you're here to play this sport. And I'm like, okay. But that's kind of how it is. And I think from the outside looking in, people really don't grasp how much of a job it becomes once you get out of high school. Yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes once you're out of high school, it's now a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I saw watching Chris Webber talk about his experience in Michigan, and they did a whole thing on him because he got, they claim he took money and all this other nonsense. Which, if he did, so what? But he became very disillusioned with the University of Michigan because he realized that, hey, you guys are making money off of me and telling me that I can't make money off of me, and he left, went to the pros. There's a lot more to that story, but at the end of the day, he learned in them 2 years that, hey, this is a business, and I need to be on the money side of the business, not the side where I can't make money for myself. So, I'm
Well, that's.
happy to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say I'm happy to see that the guys can actually make money now, especially with a lot of the kids now. They're great at social media, so they come to college with strong followings. Now you can monetize your social media, make money that way, grab endorsement deals, make money that way. So I'm happy for them. I'm
I am
glad to see.
Well, I know my husband was really happy to hear that, because like obviously he played a lot of sports. It just so happens that they were like, "We'll give you a full ride." Like, and
Hmm.
for those of you who are aware about lacrosse, like I think it's an equivalency sport. So to get a full ride, like he was like the
You
juice
got to
back
be
then.
really good.
Yeah. So I mean, he was a multi-sport athlete, but lacrosse was like multiple schools were like, if you come here, you can be like whatever. We'll
Hmm.
redshirt you this year. He went somewhere else because he can play as a freshman, but he's like telling me he's like after like 3 years, I was like, I can't get my
You burned
education.
out. You
Yeah, because he
burnt.
was like, I'm so first of all, he was immature anyway. He was silly because they give you everything. Like he had the world, right?
Hmm.
Um, especially we know that lacrosse is like a rich person's sport. So you got
Hmm.
this brown dude playing a rich person's sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, it's just a whole other world. But then he would go play with his homies, like the people who look like him, in basketball, but he wasn't allowed to be a walk-on, right? Because they're like, we paid for you to be here
To
only.
play lacrosse. Yeah.
So he couldn't do anything. So he was like, there was a lot that went into it. So that's the reason why, like, when he looks at like my daughter or whatever, she's like a great athlete, as cute as a button as she is, he's kind of like, I don't care if she doesn't play in college. He's like, she's a good athlete, but he's like, if she doesn't want to play in college, she doesn't have to. And I'm like, I agree. Now I went to school in Division III, you know, but I was there for academics. So
A little bit different.
you're different. But even still playing in college, you know,
The work is the same, but the focus, you know, ain't nobody coming to pluck me out of Division III, most likely. Let me
right.
go to
You know
class.
you're not. You know you're not.
Yeah.
So I mean, so you're still competing. I'm like, why does this like it was just like it was a lot of work. And I
Right.
was Division III. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is a lot of work
The
between
work is
that
the
and like
same. Yeah, the work is the same.
so with that being said, I do feel like they are exploiting these athletes still. If they're allowed to make money off of their name and likeness, I think no. Yes, their name and
It's
likeness.
name, image, likeness. Yeah.
Name, image, likeness. Okay. But I don't think it's enough. As much as these universities, I feel like they should be given a salary, not a stipend, like a salary. It may not be like a lot of money. Maybe it's I don't know.
So,
they should they should try to work for the see if they can negotiate for the gate. That's
yeah,
The
how
gate,
about
what
that?
you mean?
The ticket sales.
Oh,
I mean, you think about the University of Michigan, their stadium holds over 100,000 and they pack it out every home game.
dang.
So, you know, some of these schools.
I think about like Alabama. I think about like Georgia.
So Alabama, I read an article. I think it's the mayor of Tuscaloosa flat out said a football program is worth $2 billion a year to that city or to that town. Just a football program.
See right there, they should negotiate right there. We ain't hitting the field unless we get part of this gate. I need some of that gate money.
$2 billion.
Now I've also heard some guys that have gone on to the NFL say they took a pay cut going to the NFL. So they were getting it under the table. They were getting it when they weren't supposed to. But again, it shouldn't have to be that way. You know.
That is $2 billion.
I mean, think about it.
Look at them stadiums. How big those stadiums? How much they?
I know, but it's only like four.
I mean, not just the stadiums, but the SEC has an exclusive TV deal with ESPN.
That too, yeah.
And by way of ESPN, also ABC. There's also a SEC network, which is their own TV network, advertising, stadium sponsorships.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Forget that rights. I mean, that's cool, but as a player, I'd be like, look, we need to get some of that gate money and something else.
There's only 2 college coaches in the country you see on TV commercials:
Saban,
Deion Sanders and Nick Saban.
Yep. Deion Sanders. I mean, you think he's getting paid that much?
No, I think he's. When he first took the job, it's like $325K is what they were paying him.
What? Wait. I mean, I know he's at an HBC. Was it Jackson State?
Jackson State.
Yeah.
And he's only making $325.
Well, you got to think about what they generate. Yeah, that's a lot for that school.
That's a lot.
I don't think any of the teachers are getting paid that much.
No, absolutely not.
I'm sure they're not, but I'm like, what is Nick Saban getting paid?
Million.
He's well into the million. He's in the 80s,
like 25 or something.
Yeah,
maybe
in
more.
fact, he just got an extension last year. But yeah. But if you think about what he's done for that program before he took over.
Yeah, but you know how I feel about that. Being that, my master's degree was from the Oklahoma University, even though I was in the military at the time, they had to fly all the professors over. So technically I'm a Sooner. I'm like, so I think next year the Oklahoma goes to the SEC, but I'm sitting there thinking like, I had to throw all that in there, gratuitous. Not that I'm a real fan, but I'm just sitting there thinking like Nick Saban, like the way I feel like the AP poll thing and everything like that is so rigged.
So right now, Nick Saban is making $10.395 million a year. He's the second highest paid head coach in college football.
That's just a salary. What about all of his endorsements?
That's just a salary, yeah. Oh. But I mean, you think about it. If they're paying him $10 million a year, how much are they making?
Right.
I mean, you got to, every time he goes to a bowl game, whether it's a national championship or not, there's a payout that goes to the school. and this is what people don't know. So when you go to a bowl game, there's a certain portion of that money that gets paid to the school, and then a certain portion that gets split between the other schools in the conference. So the SEC regularly might have 7, 8 schools in bowl games.
Yeah.
So not only are you getting your bowl game money, you're getting your portion from the other schools. So it's the economics around college football is crazy.
I mean, he doesn't have to
Yeah.
pay gear. I know I'm being petty because that's like so low scale, but I'm thinking like I would have all the cute gear. I mean, the sneakers, I have all the trunks.
But I mean, now I also say this: you think about where the University of Alabama's football program was before he took it over. They were just a middle of the road football program. So how much money has he made for that school in the time he's been coaching?
Yeah, it just kind of shows you where we are as a society. That's real important for us, that we're willing to watch football that badly and put so much money put our money into it. I always found it funny how people who root for certain schools and are diehard whatever school, and they didn't go to the university.
I know.
I don't understand it. I mean, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, now the one thing I will say is that, all of that money that they're bringing in, they also pay for those non-revenue generating sports. So you got swimmers that are on scholarship. Well, swimming ain't making money, but you're some kid is getting a debt-free education.
They're using that to do a lot of other to help finance other, like the women's basketball team and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
And
I felt like that was shady. I don't know why. It just felt so shady to me.
Why?
There's some truth behind it, but it still felt shady.
How was it shady? That's the truth.
And then I watched the 30 for 30 multiple times on the University of Miami, and one of the guys from those early years when they were building that program said something that was the academics of the university hate it, but it's very true. He said every time we won a bowl game, a new building went up on campus. So everybody's benefiting from what these guys and these coaches and these
from their labor
they're doing.
Yeah, from those guys' labor out on that field. Kind of like slavery.
I wrote down, make university or my chicken scratch, make universities rich, ... white coin, black labor. Because it makes me feel you're so right, these bad. It's giving me like
now one thing I would say is that's where it's up to us to teach our kids, hey, look, I know you're going to Alabama on football scholarship, but while you're there, you need to take advantage of all this other stuff that they have to offer because your labor's paying for it. So, hey, that science building over there that you paid for, put just as much effort into that as you do into your football career.
But if the coach said, "Hey, I don't need you taking no science, you ain't gonna be playing." So what good is that?
But from now, this is only in Nick Saban's case. From what I've heard his former players say, they don't do that in Alabama. They do push you to go to class. But if you're in that situation, then that tells you need to transfer. You need to get out of that school and go somewhere else. But
the thing is, we got a lot of these parents. We got to be honest. We got a lot of these parents who are trying to live vicariously through their kids, and they think that their kid is their lottery ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And
nothing could be further from the truth.
And the fact that I think one of the best documentaries that I always thought was that Hoop Dreams.
Yeah, what happened to those guys, Arthur Agee and all those guys?
Yeah,
none of them made it pro.
Yeah, and you have all these guys. I remember when I would go tutor young kids, and particularly the black kids black boys who, when first thing I'd ask them, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And they'd be like, "I want to be a football player. I want to be a basketball player." And I'd be like, "Look, so let's look at this as a job." Mm-hmm. And I had to break it down by how many teams, how many positions were available each year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, let's look at hospitals and being a doctor. So how many more positions are available? Do you have a better chance of being a doctor or a lawyer, engineer, than as far as numbers go, than being professional athlete? And I would try to always put that in their mind, and then in the number point of it, like, look, your numbers are better with you sticking going down this road instead of you trying to put a ball through the hole or whatever.
Yeah, and and I tell kids, and I've talked, especially by virtue of coaching, I've come across all types of kids that want to go pro and so on and so forth. And I always tell guys, listen, that's a great goal to have. It's hard to do. But go pursue that with all your might. But if it doesn't work out, what are you going to do? If it doesn't work out, what's your fallback? Translation, go get your education too. Or even if you do make it, what happens when you're out of the league in 3 years, which is the average career? Then what? You're 25 years old. What are you going to do? You don't have enough money to live the rest of your life. So now what? And I try to balance it, but I also give them the numbers that, hey, every level you go up, it cuts by half. Half the kids that play Pop One to play high school, half those kids play college, and only about 10% of those kids play pro. So what are you actually going to go pro at? Like you said, you're more likely to go pro at being a firefighter than being an NFL quarterback. Or you're more,
Right.
and there's nothing
No,
wrong with
like,
that.
I don't know. I guess you can call me a dream crusher. 'Cause I need to crush them kind of foolishness
No,
dreams. We don't
like I
need
can't.
that.
Yeah, I can't
We
call
don't
it.
need that. You don't.
Yeah,
It's not adding to the black collective. It's not adding to black society. You just another coon in the coon train of entertaining white folks. We need black folks who are going to produce. We were just talking about black excellence. That's what we're
but
talking about.
but
And
like
being a
so.
person just running a ball down or shoving a ball down a hole or whatever, that's not black excellence. You just a nigga with a ball who can run fast. So we need just
Hey,
let's just crush those kind of dreams. We need to get
but you
away
know
from
what?
it.
I can't.
That's
I
how I
can't.
feel.
But at the same time, I look at a Myron Roll. I look at a John Urschel. I look at those type of guys. Those are the two that jump out at me.
But see,
Myron.
for every one of those, you have the other fools who end up broke, looking stupid, or whatever, with the gold teeth, playing football, and barely can speak, and they put a
But,
camera in their face.
but
We
yeah,
don't
but
need that. That's
that's
just
more.
me. No, no,
Yeah.
I'm venting. I've been
No,
triggered.
no, no. Yeah, you're right.
Just,
I hear what. No, I hear what you're saying. I always say that's more of a stereotype than the truth. But and Myron Roll is he's the most, when you say black excellence, he's probably one of the most excellent examples of being both, of being an all-American, a Rhodes Scholar, now a brain surgeon, drafted into the NFL, all of that stuff, right? John Urschel left the Ravens to go finish his PhD in math at MIT.
right, and he's the
So
exception. He's the exception.
but there's any number of guys, you can go take it down to your Richard Shermans, graduated from Stanford early, high round draft pick, very
I would
successful
say there's
NFL
been
career.
more. Well, okay, yeah, we'd have to look at the numbers, but I agree, and I understand making some of our kids feel great and they can do this. But I like being
But,
real
but not for
because life is hard.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
world is rough, and we need to stop putting these candy coated dreams on these kids and say, look. You're a black man in this society. You have a target on your back, and
Mhm.
understand you need to excel in having using your mind, not your brawn and your back.
Sure.
That's been the history of you being used for your labor. Let's use your mind to
Well,
make some
flip it.
money.
Yeah, you flip it. You're like,
Well,
okay,
I mean, I think you can take advantage of both. I mean, I look at my husband. I look at CBR Kid, right? They play. I mean, well, I played Division 3, but I
you
think,
still, yeah.
but
Or
I mean,
you can bring it full circle to there's a kid plays for Dallas right now, Micah Parsons out of Penn State. First
No,
thing he said was, look, I listened to you guys. I hear what you said about the mistakes. I took the business classes at Penn State so that I won't make these mistakes when I get here.
no, and I agree. There needs to be a balance of being the scholar,
Sure.
athlete, and all that. But we got so much of the foolishness of people being gaudy and want to be flashy, and that outweighs. And we have to be honest and real about what's out there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I
I
mean, God,
no, I was like, and that just brings it back to, I'll try to, when I talk to young people, I just try to let them know, hey, it's not, if you want to play in the NBA, fine. Know what comes, first of all, know the chances, all right? Understand that you may be the best player on your team at every level, and you're still not going to get there. So
Yeah.
don't lose. Remember why you're in school.
No,
So
and I agree with this is what made LeBron James so great. They saw him at 16. They knew his talent right there. So now
mhm.
we have something to benchmark. And you could tell these kids, look, if ain't nobody seeing you at 16 like LeBron's, more likely get to the books, get real. It ain't gonna happen.
So now I have told many a guy, hey, who recruited you out of high school? Nobody? That should let you know where you stand. You might want to go over here. And for most of us, that is the reality. Um, but at the same time, hey, if you want to pursue it, but make sure you don't ignore the other stuff over here that's going to sustain you for life. And
That
I guess I'm just a killjoy.
no,
man,
I mean, it is. I mean, look, it's a harsh
it's,
reality,
it's
right? Sometimes you got to call a thing and say thing. You're
well, and
probably not.
so like, and I tell you, so one of my coaches in college, he used to say this to us all the time. You've never seen an entire national championship team go to the NFL. So you guys probably should go to class. See, he made it that simple.
It's a
Yeah.
good point.
And you could say that for the Alabamas, the Georgia team from last year. Yeah. 10 of those guys went to the pros. But there's 90 guys on the team. So the other 80,
Is there really that many people? I mean, would you get the practice
at,
squad? You got your
so at that level, you got 90 scholarship players. So
really?
there's probably at Division 1A, there's 90 scholarship football players. There's
That
probably,
many?
yeah, and that's not counting the walk-ons and the guys who never suit up for a game. So
90
mhm,
on scholarship?
on scholarship, yeah. You get 90 scholarships.
A lot of free labor, ain't it?
And
I
think
mean,
about
you
it,
put me like totally shook right now. That's a
and
lot
you think
of
about it, of your
plantation
scholarship
labor.
players, you got 90 scholarship guys, 30 of them ain't ever gonna see the field. So when we talk about the
What?
numbers on going pro, the reality is you should go to class.
Oh. So, I mean, you and I know somebody, a mutual person who was a walk-on at Tennessee. And he
Mhm.
was like, I was like the bottom of the barrel,
Yeah,
I never got a chance to suit up. I was, he was on a team.
yeah.
Huh?
He was technically on the team, but he never suited up in the game. So
He was like, I was like, he's like, yeah, I mean, I grew up in Tennessee playing football all my life. Like, and I went to Tennessee. I was a walk on. I never got a chance to. And he's
I'm
like,
sorry, I made a mistake. 85 scholarships for football, not 90. 85 at the highest level.
I mean, but what are they doing? Like, you get a scholarship and you show up, you're just like eighth string. I mean, like,
Pretty much. You fighting trying to get on the field.
you know what? Let me say this. It just hit me because we know someone who's working with my daughter, and she's a Division one of the best in the country when she was drafted, like either number one or number three. And I'm not gonna say who she is. I'm not gonna say where she went, stuff like that. And you know what? She was telling us this summer. She just finished her freshman year, and she said
Mhm.
to me, I mean, she's great. She said, I was always the best in the area. I was like almost the best in the country. But she said I played against my year, like my
Mhm.
graduation year. Like she
Yeah.
was like I was, like she's used to being like she's either the number one or number three recruit
But then she
nationwide.
got there and everybody else was
She
also
got
the
there.
number
She
one and
said,
number three recruit.
you know what she you know what she said? She said everyone when I got there. She said number one, everyone is good. They
Hmm.
are so good. She was like, just don't realize how good they are until you see the goodness. Then
Hmm.
she said, number two, you're so used to remember because you're in high school and you used to
Hmm.
play against certain years, certain ages. She's like, oh no. She said, I'm playing against grown
Women.
women.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these women like,
Yeah.
WTF. And I
But
looked up something right before we went live, and they were talking about women, they are at their best, they run their best, they're their fastest and everything. They said in their 20s and 30s. I was
hmm
like, wow. They said that's when they're usually at their best as far as athletic capabilities in your 20s
hmm
and 30s. Not
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
yeah, I was looking up something and they said your fastest because think about it, you've gone through all the puberty, everything's settled, the TNA is popping and locking. It is what it is. You've already learned how to run with it, the knockers and the hips and everything, and plus you're stronger. You probably meet your maximum height, all these other things. And so they're saying 20s and 30s. And so she said, I go to college. Here I am, one of the best in the country. And
And
I
you're just another
barely
face.
take the field.
Yes,
She
another
said, because
face.
these chicks out here, they were so good. Now, this is like a top tier program, okay? Like, when you're like top in the nation, you're going to top tier programs. And she's like, I
And it's
barely even
it's
saw the
it's
court.
funny that you bring that up because I remember specifically my freshman year, my head coach, because all the freshmen come in first. We're there a few days before the upperclassmen come back. And he said, listen, in high school, the oldest guy you played against was 18.
Mm-hmm.
There is no age limit in college. So you can
Mm-mm.
line up across from a guy who's 25 and a full
Yep.
grown man. And the same would apply there. It's like, hey, yeah,
She
you were the
said,
best. You were the best in your high school class, but nobody was over 18.
I'm 18, whatever, because she said, I'm a freshman and I'm playing against 22, 23,
Yeah.
24 year olds. You got people who are in grad school, you got the COVID stuff. People didn't play for a couple of years, so they saved all that eligibility. So now remember, this is their prime year. She's like, so here I am thinking I'm somebody, and then I get to college, and she's like,
You're just another face in the crowd.
it's just another really good player. And now she'll make the field. I'm sure she'll take the field this year. But she was like, because the freshmen they got
Don't
ate up
play.
last year because you got women in their prime. They're like 22, 23 years old throwing down. They're like looking at the freshmen like, oh, you got freshman body. I was
Same
like,
thing.
what?
It's the same thing. Football, basketball is a little bit different, but same
You
thing
and I
with
were talking
football.
about Ariane Knight in the track because you and I are big
And in
track.
track, kid's going to be good. Kid is very good.
Very good, but he's
But
got
the
an
reality is
18-year-old
he's 18.
body. Can't compare to the 24-year-olds right now because they're like stacked. He's got that young boy body and he's
He's
good,
he
but
still got a boy's body racing against men. So he
basically,
killed everybody his age, but against men, it's a little bit different.
my husband said something similar. He said, "Here I am. I'm coming in, star athlete, nice big. I mean, he's fit, lean, nice big body, 18 years old. He's coming in." He said, and then you get clocked by a grown man. He's like, these dudes
And
are
it
like
changes
23,
everything.
20. He's like,
Yeah.
and like they're mature bodies now. These are men. So I'm coming in 18, 19 years old, starting as a freshman,
And you got to
getting
have the mental
clocked.
toughness to handle
Yeah. He was like,
it.
what just happened?
That's a bruise to your ego. That's a big bruise to your ego. You got to be able to
Well,
handle that.
I get it when they talk about these kids going to college and then there's only like about a small percentage making
That
it.
go
And
pro. Yeah.
yeah.
There's so
So
much that goes into it. But again, like Disha Baz said, you gotta
go to
keep it in
school.
perspective and be realistic. I worked with a kid this summer, really good kid, really nice kid. He went on academic scholarship to Michigan State,
Nice.
but he wants to play football and he wanted to walk on. And
Mm.
I told him, I worked with him and I said, listen, go out there, have at it. I said, the one good thing is that you're not beholden to the football team to pay for your schooling. So if it doesn't work out or you don't like it, you can walk away. But I said, the other thing I told him was don't get caught up in the football. It's very easy to do. Remember why you are there. I was like, at the end of those 4 years or 5, depending on your major, walk out of there with your paper. If you go pro in football, if you become all Big Ten and whatever, that's all icing on the cake. But remember why you're there. He's a really good kid. I think he'll do fine. But I just let him know, hey man, you're there for this. Football is extracurricular. As much as I love the game, I've been involved with it all my life. At the end of the day, the game don't last forever. You gotta set yourself up properly for life after college, whether it be the pros, whether it be in business, whatever. So
Well, yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up soon, but I will say this. I want to thank you guys for coming on because I know we talked about Black excellence, Black athletes, Black Kanye, and then I had to throw in R. Kelly just because I was feeling really shady and froggy tonight. Um, I mean, I could have picked anybody. Like I said, it could have been Bill Cosby or it could have been anybody, but I just had to pick just one just to be annoying. But I will say this: when it comes to these athletes, and my husband had a really good perspective on a lot of things, and he's played sports all his life, and I think the saving grace for him was the fact that he was like a closet nerd on the inside after he shenanigans.
the nerd who could play sports.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when you see him, it's kind of like obviously he's a tall guy. I mean, obviously he's got a couple, a little bit. He's got the dad bod now, but but it's so funny because he realized, because of some of the values that his father and his family instilled in him, it's like, you need to get an education because we're not
Mm-hmm.
taking care of you. And he had to come out of a PWI. He actually went to a couple of schools because he was like clowning. And then when he came out of the PWI, he actually ended up at a local HBCU to
Mm-hmm.
finish up his degree, actually,
Mm-hmm.
because he's like, I was partying, I was doing what I wanted to do versus what I needed to do. He said, when I had to pay for my own education because I didn't have a
It
scholarship,
changed.
he was like, I gotta pay for this. I mean, we don't have any student loans or anything like that. He bootstrapped it and everything. But he's like, I need to get my degree. He became a developer, became a college. Next thing you know, he's like coding for the state and carrying on. I'm like, you big nerd. You wouldn't know it by looking at him. But he's like, look, at the end of the day, as much as I love sports, I value education, which is why, for those of you who may watch this, we did a panel a while ago on education versus trade school, or I forgot what it was. I think it
I
was
remember
actually
that.
called the Real
Yeah.
HQ. I think is what it was, and I was being completely shady. Is it Harvard? Is it Howard? Is it Hampton? Whatever. And I think the main thing was, we were talking about, like, I know in our family we still value education. Not to say that there isn't value in trade, but oftentimes, without having to put a whole bunch of caveats, if you're engaging in getting a trade education, which is completely valuable, but you're capped almost. It's almost like a ceiling. There's like this soft ceiling. Whereas when you get your education, sometimes it's not just like the X's and O's, like, or the ones and the zeros. It's the networking, it's the other things that come out of it, and the exposure to things that, I don't want to say it makes your ceiling limitless, but I think it gives you some extra, ceiling height.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a big fan of pressing for education. We always tell people all the time, and they're like, "Oh, your kids are athletes or whatever." We're like, "No, they're students first. They're student athletes, and student is always first."
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, thanks guys for coming on. I know it's late. It's 10:55. I didn't know we were going to be on this long, but we know how to
It
make it so
happens.
long.
Yeah,
It
y'all know how to run your mouths.
Oh, you need to stop. Well, we'll do another one. I know it had been a while since we had done one. We've got to come up. For those of you who are watching, we struggle to come up with provocative talking points because we agreed that we don't want to talk about anything with gender war. Like, it just gets old. There's enough people out there talking about the gender war. Like, I don't feel like talking about men ain't this, and then guys are like, women ain't that. I mean, like, we know that we're all really shady and janky. I am like so over the gender war, but when you have like a panel of people, you want to be able to make it slightly provocative, not provocative, but you want to make it interesting.
interesting.
We thought about having one that's completely silly, but I'm like, well, how would I title it? And would people be interested in listening to us debate things, like I think we alluded to, like Spades versus Big West? Like, what's it like? Who's the real best rapper? Or like, who's like, we came up with a whole bunch of little like funny things to poke
The
at.
mindless stuff, just to
Mindless stuff, just to
yeah.
have fun. But the challenge is in having topics that are informative, but are interesting at the same time. So if you guys have any suggestions, put it in the chat or whatever. Let me know. I'll eventually check it. I do check it. Sometimes not always timely, but put it in the comment section. Let us know if you want to see us debate something. But I can tell you right now, I really struggle. I do not want to talk about the woman's sphere and the manosphere. I don't care. And I'm like, there's always gonna be the stupid gender war stuff until we get our finances and everything else together. So let us know. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you, D Shabazz. Thank you, CPR Kid. I know it's getting late for us on the East Coast since D Shabazz moved away. And we'll come up with another one. D Shabazz is a trip. You were really good tonight. You were on your best behavior.
Who, me? Yeah,
Yeah, you were. You were really good. And you weren't as janky with the audio.
Say it again.
You weren't as janky with the audio.
Yeah, I think my location has gotten better. That's why.
I know.
You got
But
better
all
cell
right.
towers. That's what we're talking about.
Well, look, let me get out of here. I am going to let me see. Stop sharing my screen on some other stuff. But anyway, all right. You guys want to say something? Do you want to promote anything, or are you good?
Well, we're good. 2.5 hours. We're solid.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're good. The only thing I say, Black America,
Go to class.
less sports, more reading, more working with our hands. Let's be producers instead of spectators, and entertaining people from the dominant society. Let's build our own and be
Okay.
yourself.
And let me say this. Y'all need to go ahead and subscribe because you like me. I'm practically perfect in every way and can do no wrong. So go ahead and just like me. I haven't said this in a while, but there's the 5 S's. Now I'm going back to the old school. Subscribe. See my videos all the way through. That means you got to watch them. Say something in the comments. Put something in the comments. Share it with all of your friends and your aunties and basically everybody in the free world. And then show your support by giving me a thumbs up. Don't give me a thumbs down.
No, you got the what is it? S's? We're using S.
That's 5 S's.
Well, you may need to add one more. Smash the like button.
That's what show your support is. I said giving the thumbs
Oh,
up.
okay.
That's basically, yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I wasn't really listening that well.
You know what? I felt like that was a doctor. That was a body blow. I felt like you just punched me. You got punched me.
Oh no, that's just on me not listening. That's all. That's not you. That's on me.
Oh, Lord. All right, but go ahead and subscribe.
Got it covered.
Bye, guys.
See ya.